Hey, everybody, welcome to Movies We're Talking About, where we talk and talk and talk about movies at great length. I'm John Carlos, and today I'm joined by, state your name.
BJ, Brendan J.
You and I talked about like a long time ago during like the pandemic era, I believe.
Oh,
Uh,
yes.
we talked each Bond actor and their movies. And then the world seemed to open up a bit, and then life went back to normal, and it's like been a few years. I'm like, we need to get back to fucking that Daniel Craig one.
Yes,
We need to
absolutely.
close that loop. In fact, I think I'm glad we waited so long because this was pre No Time to Die.
That's right. That's right. Because we wanted to do it leading into No Time to Die.
Yeah. um I think right off the bat, like, it can't be denied that that kind of like how, even though I don't totally agree with this, the general consensus in the way pop culture seems to remember it is that Batman and Robin was so silly and shit the bed so hard that they had to take a few years and then do like a serious reboot with Batman, bring it back to basics, a little more grounded, a little more character driven. And it really does feel like Die Another Day, in the same respects, got really silly and shit the bed. Bond had to take a few years off and come back a little more grounded, a little more character driven and serious. So
Yeah.
there's parallels.
Yeah. Ooh, and Bond did this multiple times.
I like Batman and Robin, by the way, but I'm just saying the world seems to.
Well, I love Batman and Robin, but I love Batman and Robin for exactly the reasons why most people don't like it. Like I embrace it because like I like the Batman television series, but do I think they should throw $100 million and make a Batman television series style Batman movie now? I don't think so.
No.
And that's what happened. But once again, to use that as a parallel, when it becomes really silly and it becomes kind of smarter, it's trying to be smarter than the material, you lose the fan base and then you create fans of something that is not true to the basis of what you're doing, of your IP or whatever it is. So like I've always been a fan of the darker Bond. I like the movie. I like the books that I've read. Bond is a darker character. There is some humor, there is some gentlemanly, suave, but not like the Pierce Brosnan era, not like the Roger Moore era. And I was a big fan, definitely film wise, of the Timothy Daltons, the George Lazenby, and then the Daniel Craigs, were the Pierce Brosnan and the Roger Moore, and kind of the funny era of
Connery. Yeah.
Connery. Not really into even and those age worse, and like they just age terribly as we get further away from you know
Yeah.
the creation of these movies. The silly ones become less and less attractive and kind of more off-putting.
Agreed.
So it's like the older I get, the less I can even handle Roger Moore or Pierce Brosnan. I just like I can't. And then to
Yeah.
see Sean Connery do silly things in like Diamonds Are Forever makes me just go, ugh, let's skip to Lazenby.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, yeah, it's the character's a weird, is a delicate balance. I think Craig stands out.
Yeah. The one thing that really hit me on my most recent rewatch, because I just plowed through these 5 movies over 3 days, really is like, I have to reevaluate like exactly where he ranks, but pretty high up. Like he's the closest you get to Dalton, I'd say.
Yeah,
Maybe over the course of 5 movies, it gets a little redundant, but what they're having him do is the closest you can get to Dalton to what I want out of a James Bond. Um,
are you
eventually, though,
are
eventually after
you
five,
controversially, are you by that rationale, are you stating that Timothy Dalton would be the example Bond you want
yeah,
someone to be?
yeah. But I don't.
This makes me so happy.
You
I
don't
just
find that controversial.
no, because
Others might.
yeah, but I yes, I think he's the greatest James Bond. So I agree, and I think that Daniel Craig was smart enough to go, wow. because the Timothy Dalton first one was a huge hit. Like it was explosive after View to a Kill. And then the second one, he went even edgier.
Mhm.
And it was kind of a dark horse hit, but it still made money, but wasn't as big of a hit. Well, then, much like Daniel Craig, and maybe this is where Timothy Dalton faltered, Daniel Craig's movies are very similar to that. And once he hit Skyfall, which was the third one, which was Timothy Dalton was working on a third movie, and it had two different scripts, one that ended up becoming Goldeneye and one that ended up becoming Tomorrow Never Dies, and made to be silly and stuff. But the original versions were the Dalton sequels.
Mhm.
And I feel like Daniel Craig's second movie, which we'll get to obviously, is kind of a License to Kill situation where it is kind of a downer from the last one. And,
Oh yeah.
it subverts expectations kind of. But I digress.
um, let's just dive right into Casino Royale.
Okay.
A movie that I've personally felt like, and I feel like the box office showed that a lot of people with me, was like the shot in the arm the franchise kind of needed. I thought stripping it down to its basics really worked in its favor. And not only stripping it down worked in its favor, but, and we've talked about this in other ones, so we're going to talk about it in this video too, that not every single Bond film, but you can see certain Bond films that are chasing the trends at the time, so that when you look back on it as a whole, you can spot what was happening in cinema based on what the Bond movies were ripping off. And I was like, literally, this is like the first era where I was in it while it was happening, going, "Oh, you're doing this. Oh, you're ripping off this trend, or you're chasing that trend." And it really did feel that between like 2005 and 2008, everything was a reboot. Everything was a reboot. So I thought it was fun that, like, all right, this is what Bond's going to do. Bond's going to follow that trend. Bond is going to do a reboot. Specifically, and I do think it was Batman Begins. Like, I'm not saying that the producer said, let's just do Batman Begins. I have no doubt in my mind, though, that was part of the conversation, that, like, this is what the Yanks did at Warner Brothers with this. You take the character, you get.
And here's a trivia question. Well, I don't have to ask the question, but I'll tell you the situation. But in trivia, an actor who was seen and discussed, and as you know, there's lots of stories about offers and auditions, screen tests with actors to play Bond, but they did actually approach Christian Bale. And once they found out that Christian Bale had been signed to do Batman Begins, they said, you can't play Batman and Bond. Would you be interested in screen testing and doing all that stuff for Bond? And he said, no, I'm going with the Batman thing. And they said, great. And then they moved on. And what's interesting is that this very similarly, it happened to Adam West, where Adam West was brought in and screen tested because he was doing Captain Quick, which was a Bond kind of spoof for Nestle Quick at the time. And he was making fun of Bond, but he was so suave and so funny. They were looking for that kind of a Bond for On Her Majesty's Secret Service. And so when they tested him, he had already shot the Batman pilot. And they said, oh, yeah, you can't do Batman and Bond. We can't do that. And so Adam West picked Batman, and similarly, so did Christian Bale. And so that Batman Beyond kind of parallel is funny in multiple ways.
Oh, okay. Fucking I did not know that.
I'm a nerd.
I do remember, though, what a big deal it was at the time that the Eon Productions, the whole Broccoli estate from way back, they had that deal where they had access to all the Bond books except for Casino Royale. So
yes.
it was a game changer when it's like, hey, after all this time, we got the rights to Casino Royale back.
So and that was a perfect springboard to reboot.
Perfect springboard, because it was the one book that we hadn't seen made into a proper movie. There's a TV episode, and then there was the 67 comedy movie. 67? Oh, no, 60s movie with fucking, Woody Allen and
Gomez Adams and shit.
yeah. It had
Peter Sellers is in it.
Orson Welles was Lashif, like yeah. Which actually I like that movie. I think it's a lot of fun. It's just not, if you want the book, it's not going to be that. But yeah, no, but also a good springboard because that was the first book in the series. So therefore, if we're going to start over again, But also famously for a few years back when Eon Productions didn't have it, Quentin Tarantino was trying really hard to make Casino Royale like as
I
his
remember
own
that.
out, kind of like his Never Say Never Again. Like I'm going to do my own Bond movie, and it never happened. And as much as I like Quentin Tarantino, I'm glad that never happened because I like
Me
what
too.
this does. Um, I have my nip every single movie we're going to talk about. I have notes, but but even this is a movie I love, and even then I have the tiniest of notes. And some of them just come from the fact that I've read the book, and even though you have to go to a movie going, it's not gonna be the book. Don't be that guy who's like, well, in the book, but like I remember, and I would say I still feel this way, but I'm a little bit of a snob that the book they play baccarat, and then fucking celebrity poker Texas tournament shows were like all the rage at the time. Not even celebrity ones, just poker. Like poker on TV was huge. And
Yeah.
then celebrity poker with like Jennifer Tilly and all that shit was huge. And it just felt like we're gonna dumb down this aspect of Bond to appeal to like American audiences, and we're gonna have them play Texas Hold'em. And I'm like, get the fuck out of here. It's James Bond. Have him play fucking Baccarat. The book even like teaches you the basics of the game.
Oh yeah, no, it's funny because
The
there are
movie,
chapters. Oh my God, like I when I read Casino Royale years ago, I remember going through it and I was like, what? And it's kind of like in Beetlejuice where he goes, it reads like stereo instructions. There are full on pages worth of instruction on how to play Baccarat.
but it it's not hard. Like the book taught you.
Oh yeah.
And then we go into the tournament and like you understand everything that's happening. And like you can very easily do that with a movie. And instead, no, Texas Hold'em. Um, it's fine. You know, as far as it doesn't ruin the movie, but I still to this day, like as a Bond purist, I just don't I don't know. That was my little tiny strike one. It's like, oh. And then my only other tiny note, and this is a personal thing too, is that I really like Giancarlo Giannini, and they cast him as Mathis. I remember Mathis in the book being a generally good dude, and he'd already worked with Bond before. So without knowing what happens in Quantum of Solace, when he gets fingered as being like a bad dude, I'm like, wait, what? I fucking no, Mathis. He's a good dude. What the fuck is this movie doing? Oh, it's just a little. And then it turns out in Quantum Solace to confirm, oh, he is a good dude. Actually,
Yeah.
Casino Royale kind of hints at it. Once you find out that Vesper was the traitor, and M's like, oh, I guess that clears Mathis. He's like, no, it doesn't. You should still check on him. It's like, okay.
Yeah, no, but it's funny. The guy who plays Mathis, one of the reasons I immediately liked him was because when I was a kid, my mom raised me on this movie called American Dreamer. And in it, it's kind of like it's almost it's a very weird 80s like romantic comedy spy thriller. Um, it was the 80s. But he plays someone who turns out to be kind of like a secret spy who's involved with government officials and
That's
doing
cool.
stuff. But while it is a comedy and everything, in that movie he was fantastic. And he's like the foil to Jo Beth Williams, and she's the spy thing character, and he was great in that. So when I saw when Casino Royale showed up and he pops up, I was like, oh, immediately to me he would be Mathis. Like that's him.
He's already a spy.
Yeah, to me he's a spy, and I also immediately didn't completely trust him. So at the end where she goes, that clears Mathis, I was with James, and I was like, I wouldn't trust that fool. No, yeah, and that also, I mean, that kind of goes with my big thing about I think Casino Royale does right is everyone is cast incredibly. There are actors in this who I know you love that I don't want to say anything negatively about, but I can't stand those actors in certain roles. In most of their roles, I can't stand them. And in this, um, this was very felt. I think I feel
You
like
can
tried.
you can say who I can take it. We're all big
There are
boys.
actors in this film that I can't stand in any other role they play, and in this film they're fantastic. I think
Like
this film gets characters right with really great actors that you wouldn't necessarily think off the top of your head. This movie, in my perspective, really sold. I can't remember his name, the guy who plays Commissioner Gordon in the Batman that plays
Oh
Felix
my
Leiter in
God.
the
Yeah, yeah,
series.
yeah.
He is fantastic
Yeah.
and this was I don't know if this is the
Jeff
first movie I saw him in, but it's early on. He's fantastic. And
Jeffrey Wright. Yeah.
Jeffrey Wright, oh my God. He is so good as Felix, and being a Bond fan of the books and everything, he's a blue collar, you know, uh US agent, and you trust him, and so well done. Um I think the casting in this film was paramount to the long-term success of this series, Daniel Craig being one of them.
Oh yeah. And I'm right. I mean, first of all, not to be too hipster about certain things, but like I've been along, like I saw Basquiat, I think came out in 96 or 98. I'm like, this fucking guy, like
Wait,
long time fan.
which one?
Basquiat. They made a movie about Jean-Michel Basquiat where Jeffrey Wright
No, but
played.
which actor was that?
Oh, Jeffrey Wright.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like he kind of, to me, burst on the scene there, and then really, like, do you remember Shaft, the Sam Jackson Shaft?
I didn't ever see it. I never
Oh my
saw it.
God, it's
I
so good.
remember. I've heard it's fantastic. I've never seen it.
But here's the thing: it went into production with Christian Bale as the villain, and Jeffrey Wright is like a secondary character who's like a second tier villain. Midway through production, they're like, "This guy's amazing. Every scene this guy's in. If we audiences are going to watch this, and you know what, we need to change everything mid production so that Jeffrey Wright becomes the third act villain and Christian Bale gets kind of downgraded." And I've never really seen where like an actor is just so good that the producers are like, change it all for him. Um, no, he's great. He's one of my favorite actors to this day. Um,
Yeah,
so
he's fantastic. I when
and
they
he actually gets better with each movie
Yeah,
because they give him a little more to
absolutely.
chew on with each one.
Yeah, when they said oh yeah, dude, and by the finale it's oh God.
Yeah,
But when they cast him as Commissioner Gordon, I was like, "Oh, there you
yeah,
go. That's correct." I was like, "That is correct." Yeah,
so correct.
and that's why the Batman, I think, kind of soars above a lot, from a comic book fan. It's cast so well. Everyone is cast well to where you're just like, you just keep writing movies that are watchable, and this cast will work. And I think once again, this family of movies in the series show that,
I mean,
and they
so
keep the same cast.
the cast is amazing. There's I gave you my two little notes. Almost everything else about this movie, there's so many choices that get made that I think that's amazing. Little things. The opening sequence where we show like that he needs 2 kills to get his 000 license. The fact that we see the guy pick up the gun and point it, and then we get the barrel POV.
I remember being in the theater, and God, what year was this? But I was in the theater, and oh my God, when he just turns around and the scene is in black and white, and he just turns and fires, and he does the thing, and then the blood comes down, and then dun dun dun, Chris Cornell starts. I knew I was over. It just is so well done.
Giving that gun barrel thing a context. Fucking genius.
Oh my God,
And
it
fun
was
and playful and
oh,
cool.
badass. That was so badass, and once again, this movie has a great. Not all the Bond movies can say this, and sadly, the overall, we'll talk music overall in this series, but this one really landed.
Oh my God. It's one of my
Really lands,
top
and
10 Bond songs. I don't know where it would rank, but like maybe top five.
it's the
Love
top.
it.
It's the top one. Well, it's one of the top ones for this family of movies. But the Bond series has
Yeah.
excellent music,
No, I'm
and
saying 25 movies easily in the top 10,
yeah,
probably close to, if not in the top five for me.
yeah. I would say this one's probably in the top, maybe top five for sure.
And there's so many there are plenty of songs that are sung by, like Paul McCartney and fucking other dudes. But for some reason my brain just always goes to a lot of the female songs. It's just
Yes.
kind of
Oh
a
yeah.
stereotype.
Yeah,
I
no,
mean,
for
just,
sure. I
you know,
absolutely prefer,
nobody does it better. Fucking gold. There's so many. So I
dude.
don't know. It just felt like after Madonna and Garbage and Sheryl Crow and Tina Turner, it felt like, oh, a dude singing the song again,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
it's a rock song, and it's really good. Like I don't have any specific notes about song structure. It's just really fucking good.
Well, the thing I think that makes it stand out is because all the male driven songs are typically fast paced, bad View to a Kill, you know, The Living Daylights, like it's and even you know, it's very, and that one has a little bit of it, but most of them it's either hardcore or super feely, very hardcore, super feely. And this was also
This is
after
kind
the
of
age of, of women romantic tragedies, like License to Kill, you know, and then for a male POV song of being tragic. The Chris Cornell song is very tragic. It's very tragic, and it feeds into the tragedy of James Bond's life and career, and
yeah,
kid, you know, he's
lyrically,
it's tragic, and
yeah,
Cornell's perfect for that. He's always been tragic, and men our age, grew up with Soundgarden and
fucking
all of that
Temple of
stuff.
the Dog, and yeah,
Yeah, and dude, I remember us in college age, and you and I shooting a short, and me and you and all the guys were talking about the Chris Cornell solo albums, and this one just landed perfectly with the tone of the movie, with the actor, with how the movie starts, the opening credits with them killing each other with like red diamonds, and it's one of the best
oh my
intros.
god, yeah. I remember being kind of okay. I loved it, and also had a note, and that was that um every Bond movie tended to have some sort of dancing girls, even if they're not like butt naked with nipples. There was like nudity and the female figure curves, and I'm like, there's no dancing girls in this. There's no dancing girls in an opening Bond movie. However, the concept of like the art direction of the artwork of a deck of cards and the hearts and the diamonds and the silhouette figures and using like the arrow being like a heart that shoots out of a gun, using a diamond.
When that guy gets
He's
shot
slicing
with
that dude up with.
lance and he shatters. Oh
Well, first of
man.
all, yeah, the whole thing is like a Saul Bass fucking painting, which is great. Like it's basically the poster of Vertigo or like Anatomy of
Yes.
Murder in animation,
Yes.
but using the
That's a great
diamond as a knife.
yeah,
Um,
that's a great parallel. The poster
mhm.
for Vertigo. That's exactly right.
It's exactly
Yeah.
what it is. And also just like the deck of cards, like the little faces, the swirls, the border edges, the way everything's moving. I thought it was just so clever and cool that I didn't care that I didn't see boobies because it was just so cool. But then, I mean, we'll get into it later. But they brought naked chicks back for the other ones. But like,
Yeah,
this
they
is
show back up. But
yeah,
I thought that was a really interesting. It also gave the 1960s like Vertigo, like the Vertigo poster and spy feeling, North by Northwest vibe, but in modern day. It was pretty
hmm.
cool.
I also like that even though it's a rock song, I do get best of both worlds because the verses feel almost like a ballad.
Yep.
You know,
And
uh,
what's interesting for a male singer.
yeah. It
Um,
very and lyrically, it's all like I've seen angels fall from blinding heights. It's all there's so poetry to lyrics, but then the chorus gets to be a rock song, and he still gets to kind of wail or belt.
Calm yourself because and it's like I said, and that's honestly that's the truest thing from the Bond books is it's not Bond and throwing something and something explodes and he survives and dusts himself off. It's him choking people out in the back alley and having to deal with that and having and there's moments where he makes choices where as the reader you're reading between the lines and this guy has severe post-traumatic stress disorder.
Mhm.
He's comes from an abusive childhood. He's like and all these things kind of trickle in, which is and honestly this this family of movies starting with Casino Royale are the only movies I think in the Bond series that truly deal with it. They do hint at it in License to Kill and that type of thing, and and even in Golden Eye, which I think is the best is the best of the bubble gum. And I like the Pierce, I like all the Bond movies to a level. But the Pierce Brosnan ones seem most like I'm just eating bubble tape and swallowing it. But the Goldeneye is the one I think that you can see had the best screenplay, where you were like, oh, this is clearly a Timothy Dalton movie that they added funny quips to, you know.
Yeah.
And they dealt a little bit with his emotional trauma and mental kind of illness. And I think that, but the Daniel Craig ones, once again, stand out in that.
Yeah. Each almost every movie does to a certain degree. I mean, this one touches upon the idea that, and I love that every movie doesn't really totally beat you over the head with it. But yeah, this one introduces the idea that he went to Oxford, but everyone there could afford to go, and he came from a slightly different background. And by the time we get to Skyfall and you do see the estate, you're like, well, yeah, it is large, but it's also kind of shitty, you know.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Yeah.
but we do get the chip on his shoulder. Kind of is not the biggest fan of I don't want to say rich people, but you know, there is a have-nots background versus the haves, which to me
And
also,
it's only implied in Casino Royale, but you get
yeah,
it.
no, they mentioned that, yeah, well, it's the way Vesper dresses him down in the train car where she's like, you know,
Right, right,
yeah.
right, right.
So it's there, and you could see the way the kind of like steely glaze in his eye that he like you touched a nerve there. And they kind of explore. I mean, Quantum of Solace. It's just all the baggage from what happened in Casino Royale. Skyfall, we touch upon his childhood, and being orphaned. Then the fourth movie really, Spectre really plays into like, you know, my shitty brother. We'll get to it. and then,
Yeah, I was gonna say
and then,
you want to get to all of that in this one sentence.
yeah, and then No Time to Die deals with the heartbreak. So like almost every Bond movie, there is some bullshit he's going through. And this one is probably the simplest one because we only touch upon that background. But what we are being treated to is someone who, and we'll get to this in a moment, but someone who is a blunt instrument being put into a field where it's like, hey, we need you to put on this tux. We need you to act like it fucking fits on you and like that you belong here. And between this and Quantum of Solace, there's a lot of M going, God damn it, did you kill another guy? Stop. Just fucking like we needed to interrogate that fuck. And there's like 2 movies of just murder, 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 murder. And again, License to Kill, he's a murderer, but you know, there is something uncaged about him that needs to kind of in this early version of Bond needs to be kind of molded and grounded into something. But that's one of my favorite things about this movie in particular and Daniel Craig, and we've talked about this in the past with Timothy Dalton, is that in Ian Fleming's notes, he referred to James Bond as a blunt instrument. And when I see Daniel Craig in this, even Timothy Dalton's my favorite Bond. Daniel Craig, I think, defines that aspect more.
Yeah, well, I think that we knew that that was going to be the intention, that they're going to really feed into that side of the character when they cast him, because
Yeah.
he's not as good looking as some of the other guys. He's much more he's more rugged. He's more rough around the edges, and I think that that's what made this one so appealing is that, you know, he's not super pretty. You know, they get him there by how he's dressed. They wanted you to know he's a ruffian that they've cleaned into being this character. Like when he was cast, I remember me specifically, I was like, oh God, he's a great actor, but that's not James Bond, you know, and I felt like that. And that's but once I saw uh Casino Royale, I was just like, okay, so it's this version. Here we go. And I was easily sold on it because he's so good. He's so good.
So good. I remember talking to people who hadn't seen the movie yet, or even when it was announced that he was playing it. Do you remember how much fan backlash there was
Oh yeah.
because he was blonde? Like that has anything to do with anything.
Well,
But
and he's not
but
even
oh,
that
it's James
blonde.
Blonde. Who cares?
He's not even that blonde. But yeah, you know. But I mean, I get it. I get it. I get it.
Compared to
But
Timothy Dalton, you know.
here's the thing about that for me. We have had, okay, so when you look at Batman as an example,
Okay.
Batman had never been cast with an actor who truly looked and was Batman-ish until like Christian Bale. You know what I'm saying? George Clooney was cast well.
Clooney, I mean, yeah,
Yeah, Clooney was exactly right, I guess. But of course, we already
wrong
previously
movie, but
mentioned how people felt about that movie, where he got lambasted for being the reason, which he was not the reason for that movie's downfall. He was perfectly cast as Batman. But Christian Bale was the first one to actually, where we were like, okay, this is the guy who can play Bruce Wayne and Batman and the other Bruce Wayne and looks like him. James Bond was cast well with Sean Connery, with
mhm.
George Lazenby. Roger Moore, no. Okay, I get that. He didn't look like Bond. Timothy Dalton looks exactly like Bond. Timothy Dalton looks exactly like Bond from the books. Pierce Brosnan is really well look wise.
Yes.
It was time, like Pierce Brosnan was arguably to some people, I think on the other side of us, on the other side of the coin, is that Pierce Brosnan was perfect. And we're like, well, Pierce Brosnan is just a prettier, more femme version of Timothy Dalton, and Timothy Dalton's pretty but a man, which is
Mhm.
kind of how we see our Bond in the books, compared to theirs.
Yeah.
We needed somebody to go, it's the character, it's not just what they look like, it's not just the funny quips, it's not just the sexiness, it's the guy who's going to choke the guy out in the hallway, and he landed it. It is perfect.
Totally landed it. And not for nothing, but like, there are people who do find him handsome. Like, I remember
Oh no, oh yeah, no,
I
the yeah,
one of the
for
many
sure.
times I saw Casino Royale in a theater, I saw it with a friend of mine, and he comes out of the water in those little blue trunks, and she
Yeah,
audibly sighed. I'm like, all right.
great. And I thought, but I mean, here's the thing. Maybe they've been catering to us a little too much, and maybe they need to cater to the audience they're trying to get.
Well,
Uh,
I
you
was
know.
thinking about that. In more than one movie, they do focus on Daniel Craig's body
Mm-hmm.
and
Which
and
got
give
women into the theaters.
and they
Mm-hmm.
give it the male gaze that we would for Halle Berry coming out of the water, or Ursula Andress coming out of the water. They even when he's tied to the chair and he's butt naked, fucking Lashif's like, "Hey, you've got a good body." He says something to that effect, like, "Hey, you've been taking care of your body."
Wow. And
Like,
that scene, you want to talk about something definitive. Um,
oh, the fucking ropes to the
the
nuts.
torture scene and how Bond's personality is and the things he says to Lashif, like, oh, and by the way, the casting on this movie, Lashif,
Mm,
bro, bro,
mm,
bro. As you know, when he was
mhm.
cast in Rogue One, we were like, and then in Rogue One, he's arguably one of the best Star Wars characters of all time. And he can play anything, he can do
He could.
anything.
Oh yeah,
He played a good guy where you felt bad for him after we saw him as the chief, the
yep.
ultimate to shit that we all want to like die. Yeah, no,
And I mean, I'm
ask,
I'm a massive Hannibal fan.
oh yeah, oh that's
He's
right, that's right,
he is
yeah.
outstanding. But between the fact that we got him in a Star Wars and a James Bond, and now recently an Indiana Jones, like
Oh, he was great in Indiana Jones. I loved him in Indiana Jones. I thought he was great. We should
big,
talk about that movie sometime. I have a lot of opinions, but I
big,
really
big, big fan.
I enjoyed. Yeah, he's fantastic.
Yeah. Uh,
He's a Nazi sympathizer. Like I believe him in every movie, but I never connect he's the same guy. You have to remember, oh, that's Jyn Erso's dad. He set up
because his
this thing.
energy in Rogue One is so different from his energy as Hannibal. I
You
mean,
know what?
and he always has the same. He has such an undeniable speaking voice, but everything about his energy shifts. So, like, yeah, he's
So
great.
one day, when you and I are rich and famous and we're allowed to make decisions for movie companies, we're gonna we're gonna I know reboots are awful, but we're gonna do a reboot of The Rocketeer, and you and I are gonna put it together. And the main Nazi character who's gonna play all the way through, it's gonna be a new character. It's gonna be the main Nazi character, not just Timothy Dalton, because that character may be in there. But we're gonna have him play the main bad Nazi guy who's the villain over 3 Rocketeer movies, just because that's what we're gonna do. I just thought that up. That's what we're gonna do.
Okay, I mean, you had me at Mads Mikkelsen Rocketeer villain, so sure.
Wouldn't he be a great? like Nazi sympathizer, or maybe he's the, you do the 3 movies where they set up world. Anyways, that's something else. Yeah, sorry. He's
He's
great.
great though. He's great.
He's fantastic.
And actually that scene is probably my favorite scene of his, because first of all, I don't think it can be stated enough. There's so many Bond villains that are like, I am rich and powerful and I have my plan and I'm gonna steal this gold or shoot this laser or do whatever. The book is simply, this guy fucked up and he needs to enter into this thing, so we're gonna enter into this thing and get him. We'll get to that in a bit, but like this movie, fuck, we'll just get into it now. The movie, the thing that surprised me was like, if you took Casino Royale and just made it into a movie, it'd be about a 90-minute movie. They add a whole fucking hour of like, well, let's show why is this guy and how is this guy in debt and fucked. And they'd have this whole elaborate opening story about this guy who's supposed to get the code from this guy, but Bond kills him. But we've tracked the guy who sent the thing, and he's over here, bangs his wife to find out that there's a bomb at the airport. They're going to blow up a plane because he bet against the stock, and he's, I forget what it's called, not a short, but you know what I mean, where he's betting against the thing because he knows that the stock's going to go down. Blah 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 blah, and then Casino Royale happens, which is great. But what all that does, especially when you have those, I think they were like South Africans, they come to the thing and they like fucking go to his room and almost kill him. They do a really good job of showing what a corner he's backed into, how desperate he is.
Yep.
Which not only plays into how he plays Texas Hold'em, but how desperate he is for the password when he's got Bond and he's hit him in the nuts over and over, and he's still like, I am not going to give you the password. It hits him in the nuts again, and that desperation, and Bond's laughing and he's like, you're gonna die and everyone's gonna know that you died scratching my balls, and we all laugh. And then Chief kind of laughs and he's like, you really aren't going to give me the password, are you? And I'm like, this is why we hire Mads Mikkelsen, because of that. Like, I've got all the power, I've got your nuts in my hand, and I'm losing, and I'm desperate, and I can't show how desperate I am, but I am showing how desperate I am. It's fucking great. It's fucking great.
Yeah, and it was awesome. It was awesome to have the James Bond laughing, and he's like, you're gonna die, and everyone's gonna know you're scratching my balls like that. That was really funny, and kind of because Bond is always in the books and stuff, and they did a little bit in Timothy Dalton where he like welcomes it sometimes. He welcomes death, he welcomes being fired, he like, bring it on, he always gets there when he gets desperate, he kind of goes, fuck it, do whatever you're gonna do because I'm gonna win in the end.
Yeah.
And I think that was a really fun, funny, grotesque, kind of torturous way to show that personality trait.
And you've read the book, yeah?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
The one thing, I'm glad they kind of changed it because this would be maybe too much for a movie, but it's a chair and it's already got the hole missing out of it. But do you remember, it's a stick with a ball with spikes on the end of it.
Yeah.
Put something under the stick, which creates the teeter-totter.
Yeah.
And they keep stepping on it and whapping them with like a spiky ball, which is so much worse than a rope. So like, I'm glad they maybe changed that, because also one has to wonder, like, is there even anything left down there for you to use?
Yeah, and this is a guy who has the sexual prowess of like a tiger.
Yeah.
And then well, I mean, probably shooting blanks, and that's why he's getting away with everything. Yeah.
So I'm glad they changed that little thing. But dude, do you remember, you saw this in a theater, yeah?
Yeah.
Do you remember hearing like the audience just like yell and scream every time he gets a whap to the nuts?
Oh yeah. I remember also the when he's driving and he flips the car trying to not hit Vesper.
Yeah.
People were audibly like, oh my, like it was once again, or when he was shocking himself. It was the movie is so practical and feels realistic. While he's still using cool props and stuff, but it's not silly like, oh, my watch makes my car turn invisible and shit like that. But it felt real and tangible, and I think that Casino Royale of all of them sets that awesomely.
Well, there was a very specific choice that this movie made, and it's interesting to watch them progress because they all start to grow outward a bit. But there was a very yes, it's character driven, it's more emotionally grounded, but they're also like no gadgets. The only gadget he has is a fucking AED in his car. That's all we're gonna do. And even that is a real device that exists. It's not a laser or a thing that turns into a helicopter or a jetpack. It's a fucking defibrillator.
Yeah,
It.
absolutely. Yep.
We're not gonna do Moneypenny. We're not gonna do Q. We're gonna just really bare bones this. And honestly, not only is it a fun creative choice, but if you're gonna start from scratch and actually do a reboot, you're actually now giving us something to build towards eventually, which this
Yeah.
franchise does.
Yeah. Well, it was funny because
Gives you something to look forward to.
yeah, when this came out also and it was so good, I remember going, "Oh my God, are they going to remake the books and actually base it on the books and do kind of modern takes on the previously already made movies?" I was hoping they were doing that, but instead they kind of did something better by including elements that were really great in books and stuff, but then did create original stories, which they'd kind of moved on to by that point anyways, with Living Daylights, License to Kill, and once they ran out of books to remake the
Yeah. Well,
short story, thematic elements and stuff.
that was the other thing that was refreshing about this is after all these uh Pierce Brosnan movies that were cooked up, and I like those movies, but like now we're going back to an actual source material again before
Yeah,
we go and make up more things. But yeah, one of the things that I liked, it was that kind of like what you said, they didn't take Casino Royale and then just keep doing the books, but they did follow a loose homage slash structure that paralleled the first three Bond movies. In that
yeah,
Doctor No is also very minimal, doesn't have all the gadgets yet, doesn't even know how the movie really opens yet, and this movie doesn't just open with the little dots and the barrel shot either.
right, absolutely.
From Russia with Love, while not being a, I hate when people call it a direct sequel. It's not a direct sequel, but it is a direct continuation. Um, Quantum of Solace is a direct continuation, which just like From Russia with Love has like a boat chase, it has a fucking car chase. I'm like, okay, I see what you're doing, movies. I see what you're doing. And then everyone historically
Which also was the same for License to Kill.
oh, from just one to two. Yeah,
Well, and there is a water chase.
yeah.
There
They
is
do.
a car chase. There's several. Well,
Yeah, yeah.
truck standoff chase.
Yeah. So there's well, okay, so it's not the first one to do the formula, but they got the opportunity to keep going because Goldfinger was always like the way people kind of describe it is like, oh, that's where it starts to become a Bond movie. And this is
Yeah,
where it hits its stride, and we get the gadgets, and we get the thing, and like Skyfall, like solidifies the formula, and they give you the Aston Martin, they give you fucking Q, they give you fucking
yeah,
Moneypenny, like it does the Goldfinger. And much like how everyone goes, oh, Goldfinger, that's my favorite Connery movie, that's one of the best ones. When you talk to people about Daniel Craig movies, almost everybody they love Skyfall. It is it hits all the beats that like a Bond movie. It is the Goldfinger of this series.
absolutely
So,
it is. I would agree. It's so
and
because I know you don't like Quantum, so you're
I
just like
do.
skip. Oh, you do like Quantum.
No, I do. Yeah, no, I
Oh, I
have
like
notes.
Quantum of Solace. I
I
think
like
Quantum of
Quantum
Solace is
too.
great.
Maybe
Oh
it's been a
yeah,
while since we talked about it,
I thought
but
you didn't
no,
like Quantum of
no,
Solace. I liked it.
you and I fuck with Quantum of Solace. We're in the minority,
Yeah, I
it
love
seems.
Quantum of Solace. I thought it was great. I also loved I thought the villain was great. I liked the surprise of the underground water plot.
Well,
And
let me go back to Casino Royale while we're still
oh, because
playing with that.
you started going to Skyfall, so I was like, oh,
No,
we're skipping.
I was just talking about how these three movies
Okay.
follow the pattern of Doctor No for Much with Love but if I mean before we leave Casino Royale, like attention must be paid to certain things. I think it's great that even though they're rebooting the series, they're like, yo, but Judi Dench is so fucking good, like we can't just no, it still needs to be Judi Dench.
Yes.
Will it be confusing for people? Who gives a fuck? Like it's just
We're
Judi
keeping
Dench's
her. She
M.
stays. Which
Yeah,
it's a new thing, but she is the same character. Bond
yeah.
character. Here we go. That's it. One of the best choices they made too.
Because what makes it interesting is that all previous Bond movies, they'd eventually recast Bond. You'd usually have the same M for a fucking million years, you always had the same cue. So there's always just the one actor who changed. This is the case where like the actor didn't just change. Like we erased the line and we're starting a new line. So still keeping the previous M is the one thing like, well, there's one avenue we're not starting a new line on. But
And she,
she's
dude, Judi
perfect.
Dench destroys. She's easily the
Like
best M. Like,
she is fun in the Pierce Brosnan ones. They give her so much more to chew on in these.
oh yeah, but yeah, M. She, yeah, the Pierce Brosnan ones. I almost forget that she's even in those because I those
Yeah,
movies like those are just like whatevers. But this like the Daniel Craig series with her, she is part of the plot. She's a character, full
and
on.
she's so
Handled
pissed
well.
off, especially in Casino Royale and Quantum Solace, where like we needed him and you killed him. Please don't kill someone. Go to this mission. Hey, you killed that guy too. Stop. Um, I love the relationship in the first two movies, but I also kind of like where they steer it into with Skyfall. But no, I love M. Um, and I don't I hope this isn't the actor you're talking about, but I really fuck with Eva Green as Vesper Lind in this quite a bit. Oh, there's your. I do have one note about the relationship, but yes, I fuck with her quite a bit. I the Everything comes down to that train car scene where she shows up and she's like, I'm the money, and the only thing I don't get on board with, and unfortunately it's like one of the main things that the movie's kind of relying on. I don't ever see them fall in love. I just see the movie tell me they fell in love.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I do think some things hit for me, like the shower thing. I
Ooh,
feel that. I feel all
I
that,
feel
but
it and then I don't.
I do agree that it kind of goes, oh, oh, wow, okay, really? But I do
Yeah.
think that the way she played it, I think that she's great in it, and I do think she's fall in love with a bull.
Yes.
It does go to 0 to 100 pretty quick. But yeah, I can't stand her in like 90% of the things I see her.
Oh shit. Oh, okay.
I cannot stand her. She always plays the same stupid, like she's such a character. She's just a cartoon character all the time. Oh, and it's so silly. It's like Morticia Adams on crack. She's so overly done. Like that Johnny Depp movie, Dark Shadows.
Oh
I
well,
hated that. I hated her
BJ.
in it, but she always plays that character. She plays
Dark
that character in that kids movie where she's, oh, well, I'm Professor X, but guess what? I'm like the Johnny Depp movie
Miss
again.
Peregrine.
Bleh, she's awful. But and it's not because I don't think she's capable. I think that she falls into it's almost as if imagine if every movie that Uma Thurman did after Batman and Robin, she played Poison Ivy. You would hate Uma Thurman. And that's the problem with her is that in
Okay.
every movie, she plays the same damn character she played in Dark Shadows. And just like Johnny Depp, he keeps playing Captain Jack Sparrow all the time with the same accent. That's where I can't stand her. She always plays that character.
I mean, I don't want to be the guy who's like, well, have you seen her smaller movies? But like she did well, first of all, before this, I think her breakout was The Dreamers, which is a Bertolucci movie. Fucking great. Um yeah, like your Dark Shadows fucking sucks. No one comes out of that movie, like unscathed. But she did so many there's this really fucked up movie called Cracks with her and Juno Temple, where it's a British movie about like a teacher and students, and there's some really juicy
Is
smaller
this the
productions.
point? Is this
There's
the
this
point where we start to sound like we're David Hasselhoff fans? And oh, but he in other countries he sings and he's got a #1 hit album.
I'm
He's
just
in a
like
movie. He has TV shows in France.
there's this really good little movie. I think it's called like No Sense or Losing, but it's like her and Ewan McGregor, and everyone like the world starts losing their sense of smell, and then they start losing their sense of like taste, and then everyone starts losing their sense of hearing, and it's like a love story. Like she's done some really good work that's worth seeking out. But yes, like Dark Shadows and Dumbo and like, you know,
Ooh, ooh, I forgot about Dumbo. Dumbo, that Tim. And here's the
I liked
thing.
her in the second Sin City, A Dame to Kill For.
I don't like either one of those movies. Yeah, yeah, man. Sin City.
Okay.
Ooh, bad call. And I love that's one of my, and by the way, A Dame to Kill For is one of my most favorite comic books of all time. It's in my top 10, and it might even be in my top 5. I love A Dame to
Wow.
Kill For, and I hate her in that movie. I
Okay.
hate her in Dark Shadows. I hate her in Dumbo. It's it's once she gets on board with that cartoony, Tim Burton-y, dark type of thing, she just turns into that character, and it's like, can't you just play it a different way? Like, it doesn't have to. It's like Johnny Depp. Does it always have to be a Cockney accent, or do we? Does it like? Is there something else? I don't know.
Well, I like her in this. And
I
like you
like her in
said,
this as well.
I
She's
will say
fantastic in
I
this.
will say this. There are scenes after scenes after scenes in this movie where I'm like, I see why James Bond would fall in love with you.
Absolutely, 100%. I agree.
The thing that I bump into is after he gets his nuts shattered and he wakes up and he's in treatment. Well, first of all, he wakes up and then later we see him in treatment. It's several weeks, maybe even months later. And she visits him and she's just like, you can have me. You can have me anywhere. Like, and
That's
even
pretty.
he's
Yeah, I
and,
agree. That's pretty. Yeah.
and even he's like, I kind of thought you hated me. She's like, you know, and I went, okay, all right. It's the montage after, even that scene. I went, oh, really? And then you find out her whole motives. But the thing is, there's a few scenes after where they're like, we have a little montage of them smooching, and then the next thing is they're on the beach, and he's like, I love you, and I'm gonna quit. And I went, oh, I didn't. Are there deleted scenes where I saw you two fall in love? Because the movie's telling me you fell in love, but I didn't see it between you two. Um,
Yeah. But I've seen it. I've seen. I mean, it's
but
there.
I see that I see how they bond during the movie. I really like the scene until it loses me. Actually think it's really great, and I'm weird in that sometimes the older I get and the more I've experienced shitty things, I watch movies and I go, hey, that's not realistic because if that shitty thing happened to you, you would be more upset. To which someone would say, hey, it's a movie. I don't want realism and stuff. And I go, but sometimes I do. So if you're a government and you work in the financial, you're like a government banker essentially, and you get assigned to like help this guy in a tournament, and then people are shooting and trying to kill you, and you're almost getting killed 3 or 4 different times in this hallway, and you're watching dudes get tossed over you, and you're getting punched in the face, and then you lay down at the bottom of the stairwell, and you watch a dude get the life choked out of him, and you watch someone die in front of your very eyes, you are going to be shaken up.
Yeah.
So I love that he comes back to the room and she's just in the shower and she's fucking shaking. And I'm like, not to get too into it, but as someone who's gone through some level of trauma, uh, that seems like a good response to depicting how that is. So I love that even though he is this kind of blunt instrument, he knows enough to like get in there, fucking let her feel some contact, put her head on his shoulder, like she immediately needs comfort. It's really beautifully played.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic.
Until
That's yeah, fantastic.
until she says, it's like I have blood on my fingers that I can't wash off. And then he starts sucking on her fingers. And I'm like, ew, can you not right now? I don't think that's what she that's
That
what
is
she
a little.
needed.
That is. Yeah, it's a little weird. But I mean, but I for some reason it kind of I don't know. It feels kind of like a weird, you know, Star Trek 3 type.
I would love to talk to some women who've seen the movie and be like, yo, when he was sucking on her fingers after she was like murder crying, did you find that sexy or was that weird for you? Because I feel like I thought it was weird. Um,
I agree. I agree.
it's a weird choice. Um,
It was a bad call, Ripley. It was a
it was a
bad.
bad call. You know what's not a bad call though? And it was a really bold choice at the time, and I respect the fuck out of this movie for it. They don't do the James Bond theme the whole goddamn movie. And then at the very end of the movie, when he's hunting down Mr. White, and you just hear the starting of the
Yeah. Oh no,
and he's
expertly
like,
done.
Mr. White's like, who the fuck are you?
Um,
And then
um,
He also, yeah, he doesn't say the name's Bond, James Bond. He doesn't order he doesn't. That's the other thing. We strip back do you like the fucking chicken nut stirred? Fuck you. You're not getting it. Do you like James Bond? James Bond? Fuck you. We're saving that to the end. Do you like the theme? Fuck you. We're saving that to the end. We show you how he gets the Aston Martin. We don't really do anything with it. Really stripped down. Although, my God, at the time, the new, I think it was called the DBS. The Aston Martin that he drives for most of the movie, the one that gets fucking flipped.
Yeah, the one that he flips, yeah.
I'm not even a car guy, and that fucking car, I want to lick it. It's so fucking good.
Well, I remember I was pissed when I was like in high school and the Pierce Brosnan movies, he was driving BMWs, and I was like, it's in a James Bond movie, he drives an Aston Martin, you know, like Timothy Dalton was the last guy that drove an Aston Martin for that whole period. And that automatically James Bond would never drive a BMW. He drives an Aston Martin. That's what he drives.
Yeah. So I love the series uses the old one, but also I think the later movies use a couple of newer ones. But yeah, that new model they had in that car in that movie was amazing. But so you got Mr. White crawl on his hands and knees. We're starting the theme. Who are you? And we end with Bond, James Bond, and that trumpet's like burn it.
So good.
Goosebumps, hard nipples, jizz. Like the movie, like for better, like structurally, it's earning the theme. But I like that in actual execution, the movie's so good, it did earn the theme.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. 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 For sure.
And if anything, if this is your reboot and this is where you're starting, like I love that we build to like, yeah, now we're here, we did it. It's almost like the movie stuck its own landing. So
yeah, I think Casino Royale expertly done, like
expertly done.
Yeah.
And for all the things it strips away, it still does little things. Like when he's first walking to Casino Royale, and I forget their names, but they were like famous Victoria's Secrets models at the time. But they're like turning their heads and looking at him like, oh, like he still sleeps with random strangers. He still gets to wear tux. He still gets to drink a martini. Women still want to sleep with him. Like a lot of it's there. It's just, you know, some other things are going to add to it. Yeah.
I think if they, you know, it's like a greatest hits.
Yeah. And then the last thing I just need to give it credit for is that fucking, not the opening sequence before the song, but the first big action scene is like, for my money, it's not, but it's almost comical in just how good and how long it goes on.
You mean the parkour scene?
Yeah, where they're first spying on the guy. I think it's a bullfight, and then he runs. And then they run through the fucking streets, and then they run through a construction site, and then he climbs up the thing, and then they go back in the construction site, and then he like leaps through a window about this fucking big, and then they're on the crane, and then they fall off the crane.
That's cool. The crane is super cool.
And then he fucking has some he drives the fucking, there's like a scoopy forklift thing. Like it goes on and on and on, and it's awesome.
It's pretty awesome. Yeah, I'm a fan. It's a great way to introduce the movie.
Yeah, it's superb. Also, one little thing that I appreciated. Ooh, a little thing, and then we'll move on. We talked a little bit about how in other Bond movies, it's usually women. I forget Britt Eklund's character's name in The Man with the Golden Gun, but they will randomly introduce another agent, and she's always really stupid. And I always go like, I know you want to have like a bimbo character in this movie, but like she's supposed to be like an agent who signed off in the field. She would never be this stupid. I like that guy that he's with, that they're spying. He's got like a second guy, and he's like, take your hand off your fucking ear. And then I think he has to say it again, like, take your hand off your ear. And I'm like, hey,
that takes off, yeah.
You have a dumb agent, and it's a guy. Cool. The Bond needs to have a dumb agent to yell at sometimes. So I appreciated that. I just consider him that random himbo because he's only in it for that one scene.
Yeah.
But he ruins everything because the bad guy sees him touching his fucking ear.
Like, yeah, he's responsible for the whole that whole chase that Bond has to go through. That one asshole did it.
Yeah. Yeah. Quantum of Solace?
Yes.
I understand why people maybe don't like it. But I fuck with it quite a bit.
I do too. I'm very excited. I didn't remember that you felt this way about Quantum. I've always thought it was underrated.
It is underrated. I feel like I don't want to say misunderstood is the right word, but I feel like a lot of people aren't really on board with this sort of like really internalized anger and like vengeance murder quest he's on.
Yeah.
This kind of driven self-torture he's in for this movie, because that's maybe not what everyone wants out of a Bond movie. And maybe also the villain isn't juicy enough for them, but there's almost everything that people don't like about it I do like. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, I think the villain also isn't I think the villain feels not as intense but is wildly intense, and um there's a duality to him of what his public persona is, who he really is, how it is also kind of blended. It's like it's really interesting.
yeah, especially when he's at the party and like,
Yeah, I was just thinking that mentally. That was the picture I had in my head. Yeah.
yeah, because he's flat out admitting like we are. I mean, you find everyone thinks he's after oil and he's really after water, but he's blatantly publicly talking about his business, land, and taking resources. Like there is no secret agenda until you find out, oh wait, he did build underwater dams and there is a secret agenda. The resources are water, not oil. But there's something about how because it's not totally accidental. There is a loose connection, but unlike other Bond movies where here's the villain, here's my plan, we're going to stop it. Bond, through a series of circumstances, finds his way into that circle, and then you find out, oh, there's a guy who's using his influences so that they can support a. Oh, the CIA is helping allow a coup to happen, so that the guy who takes over will sign over the land for him to steal all the water. Like he's got his own villain bullshit going on. It's not like MI6 is going, oh Bond, there's this guy and he's stealing water and you need to go
Yeah,
after.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
I kind of it's rare for like Bond to just sort of show up in someone else's business and fucking ruin it.
yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. Well, and yeah,
But
yeah, it's kind of accidental almost how it kind of
it
falls into.
is.
Yeah,
But there is a loose enough connection in that they set up like we've kidnapped Mr. White. One of the operatives that's part of Quantum escapes. We track the operative to this place, and then Bond swaps places with him because you find out he's like a geologist.
right.
So I mean, it's still the whole reason that Bond's still doing it is because Quantum strong-armed Vesper into a situation to betray him.
That's right.
So fuck Mr. White, fuck Quantum. Also, Quantum infiltrated their whole thing. We'll get to that. So like, I get why he's doing it, but he on his own happens to follow this thing and follow that thing, which leads him to our story. So it is related thematically and technically to the story, but I just love how accidental it all unfolds.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
literally, I love that the girl spots him and like all of a sudden I'm in a car with this girl and I and then opens the folder and there's a photo of her and like, oh shit. And immediately there's this whole, it's like there's the first act of a movie that we and Bond didn't get to see, where she's talking
Right.
with him and their her
Right.
whole backstory. And so we get to be in Bond's shoes going, what the fuck is happening? Who's Bond's like, who's the bad guy? Who's the
Yeah.
girl? What's happening? Okay. We're all catching up together. All right. I don't think
Yeah.
any other Bond movies really do that.
Well, it's funny, and then there are some Bond movies, and there are movies in general that that work really well. Of something kind of happens, and then the rest of the movie is kind of tumbling down a hill. I feel like the pace and how things happen, it's like, you're hiking and you trip and you start tumbling down the hill.
Mm-hmm.
Something small happens, something minor happens, and you know, um, it it does it really naturally, which is something I liked about it. I remember when I saw it, we just kind of stumble into this situation, and then it becomes a major deal, and he doesn't trust that guy, and then it kind of leads into what the female lead's motive is with the politician general guy, and how all of
Yeah.
that. And I thought that the ending, I thought the contained stories within this situation that Bond kind of falls into and then falls out of is really interesting. With the female, with the general, with the guy who's stealing the water. That's almost a contained story that was happening and she was going to kill this guy and do this,
Mhm.
and then he just falls into it and then kind of falls out. I thought it worked really well in that way, and it felt like a Bond, one of the older Bond movies that would do that. A handful of the older Bond movies
It,
where he would go into the wrong casino and fall into this situation.
yeah, it almost. I hate to say this because we're talking about why we like it, but it would almost work better if it was completely a story he fell into and wasn't chasing a quantum lead. And it turns out that this guy's also a member of Quantum. And if it was just this
Yep.
accidental story he stumbled into.
This never happened to the other guy or the other fella, right? I mean, right? He was witness to
That's true.
it, just randomly witness to this situation.
Sure, yeah.
That's never happened to the other fella. That and that is arguably the best Bond movie, right? So you can, I like that situation, and you're right. It still does connect, very thin, but but I think that vibe is still there and it works. But you know, what's weird about this is that when I first saw Quantum of Solace, I remember one of my digs on it was it feels kind of forced how he just kind of randomly, it doesn't really, Casino Royale, it's trying to directly connect and it doesn't need to. But now rewatching all of the movies, it actually fits really well.
Mm-hmm.
Stepping away from it now at release, I was like, now watching all of the Craig movies, it actually is seamless to me. It just kind of it's very
Oh, yeah.
seamless.
Well, and also it opens with such a clever, like,
Oh yeah, like
you have this.
next scene.
If it weren't for the stinger at the end, it would suck because it opens with a no context car chase. And I know
Uh,
that some Bond movies open with, but yeah, you at least know, like, okay, here's the guy he's after, and here's the thing. Oh no, the op went bad. This is just vroom vroom with no context. You're like, all right, cool, cool, smashy, smashy, got it. And then we opened the trunk, and Mr. White was in the back of it the whole time, and you're like,
so good,
oh, that one thing just made everything awesome.
so good. It's so
So
well
fucking
done.
good.
Yeah,
Um, and then it
that's
does.
a great intro on that movie, dude. That opening sequence, and then when he takes him in, and they're like all the other agents. That intro is great.
I have one major note, which I guess I'll get to now, and it's one of the things that really sticks in my craw about this movie. And not to be like all nerdy and technical, but like the editing in this movie is so fucking bad.
It's really choppy, right? I mean,
Yes.
but that was a stylistic choice, I think, at the time. But
And I hate. Okay, well, yeah, that's one of the things that there's a good way to do it. You want to talk about what this movie what was happening at the time. And I remember even reading about it in advance because I remember reading that the stunt coordinator for the Bourne Identity and the Bourne Supremacy was hired to be the stunt coordinator on this. And especially when you get to Supremacy and it's Paul Greengrass and it's all handheld. And that's an excellent example of how you do loose handheld camera work and choppy editing, where you still quick cuts still allow you to. It, that's one of the best examples I can ever give someone is Bourne Supremacy of like, this is how you do fast editing and get someone pulled into the moment. Quantum of Solace, it just felt like someone's like, we'll just do that. But they do the fighting in Quantum of Solace is very much the same style of Bourne fighting. It is close combat. It is, and it's great as far as choreography goes of what the men are doing to each other. But also little things. Do you remember there was this is one of the last heydays of like when, because we can do anything with effects now, but there's these little tiny benchmarks. And I don't just mean seeing the T1000 walk through something for the first time or seeing a Raptor for the first time, but just little tiny shots. You're like, oh, that's new. And I remember in the Bourne Supremacy, he's running across a roof and the camera's following him as he jumps across from one building to the next and he breaks through the window. And
oh, I remember that. Yeah, yeah.
how we used to shoot movies is we have a shot of him jumping and we have another shot of him landing. But this was one take and we follow him through the window. And I remember going, I've never fucking seen that, but that was fucking cool. And it felt like a year later, Bond's on the roof with this guy and they both fall off the edge and they break through the glass. And I'm like, got it. We're doing Bourne with this movie, right? Because Bourne's a hit. So we need to kind of do Bourne.
It did have that Bourne Identity vibe to it. Yeah, for sure. There was some Bourne Identity. Yeah.
But here's the thing. The choreography, yeah. Some of that one shot, yeah. But my problem is the bad version of the editing, where like, no, you still have to make it all like watch the car chase. And the thing that confounds me, and they're not the only filmmakers to do this. This was kind of a product of its era. I forget the two guys who've gone on to make some pretty good other movies, but the guys who did Crank and Crank 2
Oh my
and
God,
the
yes.
second Ghost Rider, they it's so quickly cut, but you're looking at all the footage they shoot. It's so many setups, it's so much coverage. I look at that opening car chase and I think about how each one of those shots required so much work to capture, all for you to just hack it up into like,
Yeah.
oh, the thing changed lanes, whoop, and then it hit the thing and then it flipped and I went, what the fuck just happened? Can we make an action movie where I can see what's happening?
Right.
And throughout that whole, there's multiple action scenes.
Batman Begins had some of that, and I remember there were some issues with
Ooh,
that.
the L train. It's a little rough. Um, I remember because remember Nolan had done Following, Memento, Insomnia, all good movies. None of them are really actiony. And I remember at the time when you saw Batman Begins, there was a conversation of like, oh, it's good. Nolan's not really an action director though.
Right. Yeah.
Things have changed. You look at Dark Knight Rises, you look at fucking Tenet, like, but yeah, it got a little choppy, it got a little obnoxious. But anyway, I really do hold it against the movie a bit that like, um, there is car chases and fisticuffs that even the plane flight, just some of the choices they make with that plane that's being chased. At one point, they cut to a shot of Bond, a close up of him in the cockpit, and it does like a whoosh flash, but it doesn't like cut to another shot. It was just like a flare for flare's sake, and I'm like, what? I don't know. It felt like a hyperactive ADD like 12-year-old kid playing with like little editing features. I sound really snobby, but it is like borderline offensive to me how much work the crew did to stage all this shit, and then you hack it to the point that you can't even fucking see or enjoy it.
Right.
And I think for some people that might have been a problem. I know a lot of people have a problem with the story. I like the story. It's just the fucking editing that bothers the fuck out of me.
Yeah, I remember some of the editing in the end. Even though I really love the ending where he shoots the thing and all that, I dug all that. But there was so during the fire, the editing is very choppy and all over the place, to where it's almost like, wait, it almost seems like they're trying to be artistic when they're not. It's weird. Yeah.
Yeah. This is the biggest offense to me. Actually, there's two. I'm gonna. I try to be positive, but sometimes the shittiness just comes out of me. It really bothers me. It's when they've got Mr. White captured, and then like double agent shoots him, and then he escapes. It leads up to the rooftop chase I'm talking about with Bond falling through the glass.
Yeah.
We start the scene outside. I think they're in Spain, but there's like a bullfight.
Mm-hmm.
But they do that thing where they cross cut between that and what's going on down there. And then when he gets out, he's running, and then we cut to the bullfight, and then he's running, and we cut to the bullfight. And I was like, I get how other movies in the past have shown one thing while something else is happening, but there's usually a reason, like a parallel, a metaphor to be inferred. But it just felt like someone said, oh, when movies do cross cutting, let's do that. Well, and to which I would say, but why? And they go, oh, it looks cool. No, but what does the bullfight have to? What's happening? What's the parallel? Oh, there isn't one. I just think it'll look cool, and it also feels like we're just cutting to running, and we're just cutting to bullshit. And literally, we cut back to running,
Bullshit.
and then we cut back to just crowds, and it's cross cutting with no purpose, and it's obnoxious. And I kept waiting for there to be like a reason, and there really isn't. The other thing that really bugs me is the opera scene, which itself is fine.
Okay, because I love the
No, the opera scene is great. What kills me is after he like jumps in on the comms and starts taking photos of everyone who are like getting up out of their seats. He flees, and they do this thing where like the audio drops out, and he's running through the kitchen, and there's like a shootout. And I swear to God, the entire scene is probably maybe just like 30 seconds, but it's like him shooting, shaky cam of a goon. It goes from like the hallway to the kitchen to the lobby to outside. And since there's no sound, I think they're going for something kind of artistic or creative. But what ends up happening is it goes by at such a quick pace the impression I got was, well, then what was even the point of any of this? I never feel like he's in danger. I never get a sense of like, here's a goon who's about to shoot him. Oh no, it's just action for action's sake, which is okay when done well. But like, go back and watch that movie again. Just watch when he escapes to when he gets outside and drops that dude off the roof.
Right.
You could have just not had an action scene if that's what all we're gonna do.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, it is
It's
very,
pretty rough.
yeah. That's
And
true.
when you come to a Bond movie, you either want the action scene or give me a like I get
I
so
remember that
upset.
being unnecessary. The opera scene that I love the part where they all doing this and getting up and he's taking. Oh, I love that. I thought that was so great.
Yeah, doesn't he like you guys need to find a different place to have your meetings, you know? No, that's great. I love the idea of him standing there. And again, once the jig is up and they start getting up and leaving, he's like, oh, you're getting up and leaving, you're getting up and leaving, you're getting up and leaving. Like, this is great. That's good Bond shit. There's still a lot to like. So that's all the shit talking I've got. Felix fucking Leiter in this. By the way before fucking Stranger Things, David Harbour is the other CIA agent.
Which is weird, and he almost looks older, which is weird.
Yeah, and he's so good at being this like arrogant, indifferent, cocky little shit. And that's one of the things I love is when you first see Felix, he's so like, but then once you hear David Harbour talk, you're like, oh my god, I know why Felix Leiter is carrying himself like this whole movie. Like, he's so fucking over it.
Yeah.
He's great. I love that. I love the different shades of Felix we get because he's barely in Casino Royale, and when he is, he's being kind of like playful and cool. Like, hey, friend, I'm an agent too. You know what? I'm gonna lose, so I'll stick you the money as long as we get the guy. Cool. And then just a few months later, maybe yeah, I think it's a few months later, new field mission with this fucking guy, and just like.
Yeah, it gives him more of a human personality in this one.
Does.
Sets up kind of the rest of them.
I love that he doesn't just get to play cool for each movie.
Yeah.
And but I still love that he has the good sense that when James needs a meeting, all right, let's meet. We'll have a beer. We don't know this till later. He's like, well, of course I have to call the rest of my CIA team in on this. So they're talking, and all James needs is like, I think he needs somewhere to go or a name. But then he's like, just give me the thing. He's like, all right, what you need is this. This is the location. He's like, great. How much time do I have? He's like, about 10 more seconds. Like, at least James knows you're not alone. And Felix is like, of course I'm not alone. I'm still going to help you out, though. It's the right thing to do. But I also have a job to do. And I love that he's cool enough to be like, yeah, you've got 10 more seconds. And then everyone's running in with fucking armor and fucking assault rifles. And he's just saying and finishing his drink, like, whatever. I fucking love this Felix.
Yeah, no, they really establish a proper, I mean, not the exact same manner or even the exact same situations, but the proper vibe of what Felix is in the books, which in a lot of the mainstream Bond movies previous to Daniel Craig, the personal connection and their relationship, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And this one, this is the one that set the trend for the other ones following.
Yeah, it's I like that even though he doesn't appear in the next two, he gets mentioned in one of them, and I appreciate that Bond's still in contact with him because over the course of 5 movies, and we'll get to the 5th one, but like I like because we had a few different Felixes within one Bond previously, but I really like having a consistent Felix. Another little note I have. I get this is the big thing was we don't have access to Spectre anymore. So we're going to create a new thing. At first I was really on board. Like, okay, cool. There's a group. Like this first movie or this first Quantum movie came out. I was so on board. And they've got the little Q pin. They have the little meetings. I'm like, all right. I like this. But it's not until like after the movie ended where I was like, actually, it's not this movie's fault. Basically, when we get to Skyfall, like, oh, no Quantum, because it's like it's not just kind of a big deal. It feels like it's a game changer in Quantum of Solace.
Yes.
When Mr. White's like, oh, we're everywhere. Isn't that right? And then this agent tries to kill M, and you're like, wait, what? And M's like, how the fuck is there a whole other organization that we've never heard of infiltrated? Like, this guy's worked with me for 8 years. this should be a game changer level event. Like, what the fucking fuck? At the end of this movie, we stop this oil/water tycoon. And then what about all the other quantum shit? Who don't worry about it. Next movie, I'm not even gonna mention Skyfall. Really? I mean, we're not gonna mention quantum. I'm like, really? We're not gonna mention the super secret organization that infiltrated MI6? Just no mention of it ever again? Okay. I feel like that's a weird choice. They made that seem too scary, too powerful, and then just brush it under the rug.
Well, they do. I mean, they do allude to it being one of the legs of Spectre.
But we don't get to that till later. So I'm saying,
Right.
like, when that movie came out, and then when Skyfall came out, I'm like, you guys really made quantum feel like a really big fucking deal. Too big of a deal to just ignore. Spectre eventually corrects that. But even at the end of your own movie, like, it's not even really addressed.
Yeah.
We get the emotional
But as a
closure
movie
with,
on its own, and as a movie on its own, it doesn't. But like I said, going back, and it felt jarring back when I saw these movies in theaters and stuff. But now going back and looking at them, it kind of all works. It all, I feel like, I don't know how corrective that was, but it feels like it works.
there's things that we'll get to it. There's some things that work for me over the series, and there's some things that don't. But still, before you get to Spectre as a movie that even exists, I just think it's weird that quantum is so scary and so powerful, and then just gets kind of dropped. I think that's a weird choice.
Yeah.
Um,
I,
but there are some really good choices in this that I really like. I think it's really, really cool that Casino Royale opens with the barrel shot, right? This movie doesn't, but it ends with a barrel shot. And since it's an emotional sequel where, like, he has to learn to kind of forgive Vesper and himself, and the two of them together tell one emotional story, I like that it opens with a barrel shot and it ends with the barrel shot. I'm like, oh, that's fucking cool. I like
absolutely.
that. You made this a two-parter by doing that visually. Um, Another thing I really like, I don't know if we've ever talked about this because this seems kind of controversial. It seems like you either love it or you hate it. I don't know anyone really in the middle. But the Jack White Alicia Keys song,
Oh, I
I
actually like it.
love it.
Oh yeah, I like it. I like it. I do get, once again, it's one of those situations where it's a very eclectic song because it's multiple styles of music mashed
Yes,
together.
it shifts
Um
gears quite a bit.
and so you have to, I don't know, I think you have to have a certain level of and certain taste in music to dig it. I dug it because I liked how different it sounded. Because I was like, what do you do with this one? Now that you've done what you've done with Chris Cornell, you don't do another one just like that. You want it to be rock vibe still, but you want to have a little bit of the R&B singer type in it. I thought it's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, it's playing with a
Dug it.
lot because you've got the little piano and you've got like kind of a slow groove, but then it'll get really big with, and then besides like the horns, then you have her vocals kind of wailing over it. Like it
Yeah.
becomes sonically becomes a lot.
Yeah.
Might
So
be too much for some people, but
yeah,
I
yeah.
like all the different gears it shifts into. I love it.
Well, I think it emotionally puts you in kind of a twisted feeling, which is what the movie's really about.
Oh yeah.
The movie is he is, but he's not quite, and he's kind of twisted in that. He's not even James Bond until Skyfall.
Yes.
So it's weird. Like that's once again, I think these movies are like a greatest hits. They did a really good greatest hits compilation and re-recorded it for the Bond series. All of it's like Blade. It's all of the strengths and none of the weaknesses. Um, but yeah, the I think the music's great in the movie. It goes with the style of the movie. So if you like the movie, I don't get why you wouldn't like the song because I think it very much. This is where they're kind of subverting expectations with the music as well
hmm
until we get to Skyfall.
Yeah.
And then we're
Then it becomes very traditional.
and then but then after that it never hits Skyfall height or even these heights again because I think the rest of them just start
Oh,
nose
well,
diving.
yeah.
Um,
I just appreciate that we've got that little piano, bing, bing, dun 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 dun.
yeah, I love it.
But then we
It
also
almost it's yeah, it's pretty complicated for a
it,
Bond song.
and there's this one part where it's when the horns are going full blast. It's like da 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 da, and you've got Alicia Keys going oh, and it's beating over the head, but with her little ohs, the animation for the sequence, like this little globe happens and it's like rotating, and the
Yeah.
sand is going over, and the up is
Oh yeah,
down,
it's super
skies,
cool.
and I'm
Yeah.
like, this is matching like the animation for the opening credits matching the tone of the song. Fucking great. Also, it's just like, hey, look, naked ladies. They're made of sand. There's some hips and some butts and some legs, and like we're bringing the girls back. Cool. Without just being like, hey, like they're digital sand people and not
Right.
people. But it's neat having that.
Is this the one where you see the oil parts of naked chicks? It's
No,
like
that was
that's a Pierce Brosnan one. Huh?
yeah, that was The World Is Not Enough. That one was fucking cool.
The world is that's a great theme.
Yeah,
That
I
movie's
agree.
underrated. Of his movies, that one's got some really good
I love
stuff.
it.
It's got
Like,
that
yeah,
one, even though it's got the Christmas bullshit, but the rest of it
so
got some
good.
good stuff in there. Way better.
Um,
It's one of the better Brosnan ones.
I have to. I've never known how to pronounce. Again, not to be hipster, but big fan of Olga Kurilenko,
Oh, the female
the
lead.
female in this.
I know. I'm a huge fan of hers.
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, we like her. Like we both fuck with Oblivion, and you know,
Yes.
yeah, she's been in plenty. There was a what the fuck is the Centurion, which was a movie I quite liked. That it was Neil Marshall movie. Uh, anyway, if anyone who's listening, Centurion's fucking great. Um, one of the things I really, really like about her as a character, and I know this may go against what some Bond fans want. I love that there's no romance. I love that they don't fuck. I love that they're both on a mission to like get vengeance. Hers quite literally with like the person responsible, and him with going like, hey, this guy works for Quantum. Can I just hurt someone from Quantum? I just need to hurt someone.
Yeah.
This is what I need right now. Um, I like that they both help each other, both get vengeance, but also like just have a fucking ear to listen to, and for us to each get past what we need to get past. It's a beautiful idea.
Yeah, I like that she was kind of the brunt instrument, like you were saying he is. She's the same thing, pure vengeance.
Yeah, I love that when we meet her and they're on the boat and he thinks he's rescuing her and she's about to shoot him, like even before you know her backstory, you're like, oh, this probably means a lot and you're ruining it. And the fact that she spent all this time trying to kill that guy, and again, him coming into the second act of her movie that
See, I love that. I love
that
that. It works so great. I love that. I love that. How you said it is exactly right. He shows up in the middle of the second act of her movie,
yeah,
and then screws
she
everything
helped,
up, which is
but
kind of how Casino Royale, the book vibe felt. The
yes,
multiple main characters and stuff.
but I like that in the end she helps him and he helps her,
Yeah.
and then at the very end, goodbye, a little kiss on the mouth, fuck off. Like I know I'm supposed to want Bond to bang the Bond girls, but I really, really like their relationship in this movie a lot.
Yeah. Well, and on in respect to the Bond girl thing, we get a just phenomenal. I thought it was really well done reference to Goldfinger,
Oh
and
yeah,
it was so well done and so poignant. Without we're not copying Goldfinger, but we're definitely letting
yes.
you know. And I
It
thought that
doesn't.
was fantastic.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like nostalgia porn. It just feels like a cool wink.
No, it just felt like a really cool, like, yeah, we know what you're thinking. And yeah, I thought it was and once again, overall, these movies are really good with that stuff. They just
Yeah, and
we're getting to some that are really great in Spectre, even
and
where I thought that was a great little moment.
yeah, and I love. Well, first of all, I love Gemma Arterton. If I had another negative note, and this isn't even really a negative note,
She's not in
but
enough of the movie.
she's such a fucking good actress, and like this is you could have written. Maybe there's another Bond movie where she's like the main Bond character. But like I'm just saying, she's capable of so much
Yeah,
more than what this movie has for her.
yeah,
Not really her fault or the movie's fault. Just it's almost like you could have cast a less good actress.
Yeah.
But I love the kind of happy regret she has, that like I can't believe like I let this, like I'm supposed to be a fucking professional, and yeah, I'm fucking James Bond. Like there is a self-awareness. But what I really like about her character within the story is with M, uh like again, stop killing people and stop fucking everybody, because everybody fuck dies. And like M is pissed. Like look basically look at what you did. Uh so she serves a greater role in the story, which even though the villain maybe not the grandest mastermind, maybe he's not as cool as Lashif, and he's not doesn't have as big of plans as some of the later villains. What I like about him though is that he understands who Bond is, and he's an asshole about it. Like he's one of the few Bond villains who just makes jokes like, "Hey, everything that you love just ends up withering and dying." Ha 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 ha.
Oh
With
yeah,
this very Frenchy foo laugh, you know, it's so. And again, if we're kind of, it's such an easy trope. I kind of roll my eyes. They did it for so much, but Lashif is kind of like the mirror version of who Bond will eventually potentially become when it comes to dealing and trading in secrets. This guy isn't a mirror, but he holds up a mirror to be like, "Hey, Bond, this is who you fucking are." And then the next three villains are all, "Oh, it's a mirror of Bond." But I like that this guy at least is a dick about it. I mean, he's a dick. If you go back
well,
and watch the movie, he's a little prick to him
no,
in
he's a
multiple
dick.
scenes.
Like even the way he talks, like he almost like he's like he has Asperger's or something, and he's got kind of like weird he speech patterns and stuff. But and everything he says is just so like, well, you know, and then he says something just sharp and poignant, and then Bond is like, "Fuck you just say to me?" And in the audience, I remember being like, "Yeah, you know, it's kind of like that Robert Burnett movie where where he goes, he said that Han Solo was cooler than Captain Kirk. Kick the little fucker's ass. Like that. That's like as soon as in that movie, I remember going, "Oh, you got to kill that fool," because his little like kind of like passive aggressive way of talking. Oh, I want
Mm-hmm.
to touch him the whole time. And then when he's mean to the female lead, you hate him even more. You're like, you're a smarmy little bitch. Yeah, it's he's great. He's awful.
Yeah. Maybe not my favorite villain, but like I think
No,
there's a lot of,
but yeah, he's not the best, but
but I
he's
don't think he should be written off either.
I agree.
Yeah. Um, Skyfall.
Yeah, let's go, man. Let's get to the meat.
Skyfall. I mean, this is a very popular movie, and I don't dislike it, but I don't rub my nips over it the way other people do. I
Uh,
don't think it's pretty fucking good, but I also want to go, guys, it ain't that good. Hot take, I guess.
I don't think that's a hot take, but my opinion is this. Um, I speak in Michael Jackson, so I apologize. But if somebody goes, "Yo, what's the best Michael Jackson album?" I don't say Bad. And Bad is fantastic. I love Bad. But the best album is Dangerous. But if I want you to like Michael Jackson enough to know that Dangerous is his best album, I'm going to say you should listen to Bad. Is Bad great? Yes, it is. Is it one of the greatest albums of all time? It is. Is it as good as Dangerous? No. Is it overrated when it comes to Dangerous? Yeah. But like Thriller is way overrated. But I don't want, I'm not going to say Goldfinger. I'm going to say Skyfall. And Skyfall is a perfect way to make someone a Michael Jackson, sorry, make someone a James Bond fan. You show them Skyfall. It's not overly connected to the other movies. It is connected, but not overly. He's a badass, but it also gives him some personality and a little bit of an origin, which is new for him and new for us. And it really works. And the M character, she's such a good actress. We're connected to her immediately. The villain is scary, identifiable by a great actor. The theme, the opening musical theme is just outrageously catchy and emotionally vibing. The opening is fantastic. Money Penny shooting James Bond and you thinking him falling into the sand. It's wonderful. Do I go, are there better James Bond movies? Yes.
Yeah.
Do I think that The Living Daylights is better than Skyfall, absolutely. But I do think that Skyfall has the pop culture ingredients and quality to make it the modern day Goldfinger. It's the one everybody quotes. It's the one everybody. My 11-year-old knows Skyfall.
Wow.
She knows Skyfall, and she's seen the Bond movies, some of them. She's Skyfall. She goes, "That's the one, Dad. It's Skyfall." And when I was in high school, I would have told you the best Bond film was Goldfinger. I would have told you Goldfinger's the best Bond movie, but it's not. I think it's most representative of you like old timey Bond, pre ridiculous, but just a little bit.
Mhm.
Goldfinger's one.
If you want a Bond movie,
Yeah,
this pretty much is a Bond movie without
Skyfall is the
and a good one without
a good Bond movie.
Without getting too silly at this end, or
So just the right enough.
just the right. Yeah, and I do like it.
Man, I can't wait to hear what you have to say about Spectre. I'm so interested, and you're wearing that shirt and stuff. I'm so interested.
The shirt was free. And the logo existed before that movie,
Yeah,
but Skyfall, first, I mean, there is so much to like. First of all, Roger Deakins came and did I think he won the Oscar for this, like this legendary career, and he wins an Oscar for this, but like the movie looks like $1 million when he goes up to that sniper, and
that's what I was thinking, where the scrolling.
Yeah, the silhouette fight and all the lights swirling around them. It's
them going out the window, like it's yeah.
Yeah. Also,
that is one of the best. That's one of the best Bond scenes of all time.
Sure.
Spy movie, best spy movie.
Entering into the Chinese, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Like he's passing through these giant dragons. It's all like warm and red, and
yeah. Where the Komodo dragons are, right?
Mm-hmm. Komodo dragon sequence.
Insane.
Then when we're getting out of the actual house at the end of the movie, and they're going towards the church, and the house is on fire, and you've got the ice and the like these. It's the same.
The fog. It's
the light
visually stunning.
Yeah, I think was it 1917? Am I getting the year right? There was a Sam Mendes movie that all was done in like one take.
Oh yeah.
But when they get to that burning city, like it's the same kind of like him and Roger Deakins. It's the ending of Skyfall. Pretty much was the test ground for that running sequence through the city in 1917. So gorgeous movie. Gorgeous. Like you're probably never going to see like a better looking Bond movie than Skyfall.
For sure. Yeah, no, I think it's visually, the cinematography, the lighting, the pacing, the way it's edited.
Yeah.
It's a clean machine.
It's a very clean machine. And also you were talking about the casting for Casino Royale, the casting for Skyfall.
They bumped up on that one because you have to cast a new M.
Yeah, well, yeah. So you got Mallory. Yep.
He's ridiculous. We're getting to No Time to Die, but yeah, he's fabulous as the new M.
He's great. And I legitimately, when I saw that movie for the first time, I didn't know that's where it was going.
Me either. Me either. I had no idea.
Yeah.
It really worked.
I am a ride or die for Naomi Harris. When she was even cast in this, I'm like, well, I was already going, but you just sold me a ticket.
And when they made her Money Penny, I was like, absolutely. It was so well done. Yeah, and I love that she's a field agent in the opening, and her PTSD from shooting the wrong guy.
Some people there was some disappointment that like a field agent like that would end up just taking a desk job. And I'm like, no. But if it's the head of MI6,
yeah, it's not. She's not.
The person outside his door also needs to be qualified to protect that door. Like,
yeah, no,
you don't just hire a secretary.
Yeah, and she shot the wrong guy, so she wants a high-ranking government job. That's what that is.
And they do enough dialogue between her and Bond. There's more than one scene about whether she really belongs out there or not, and like, dude, this seems to be her choice.
All of that, so well done, and the chemistry. I mean, I was like, yeah, this is what their chemistry is supposed to be like.
Yeah, I love it. Ben Winshaw as Q, I thought was inspired.
Yeah, man.
I was already a fan of his from a little TV show called The Hour, which is a British show. It was kind of like an Aaron Sorkin newsroom show, but in England in like the 40s. And I'm like, this guy's fucking, he's outstanding in that show. I never before have I seen when you age a character down be more justified than look, it's the 2010s. It wouldn't be an 80-year-old man who is your tech guru. It'd
Yeah,
be
it's
a
gonna
kid.
be a, yeah, it's gonna be a kid. Yeah,
It's gonna be a kid.
I thought everything, and now that, but the Bond character is supposed to be a relic.
Right. And when
Makes
he
fun of him.
you're supposed to meet someone from Q Branch, and then he sits next to him and he doesn't even know that, and he like Bond, and he's like, "Oh, you're kidding me!" Like, do you even have? I forget the line is, but something to the effect of like, "Do you have your training wheels off yet?" Like,
So fantastic. Q, Moneypenny, Q, and Mallory are so well cast and
so good.
so well acted and written. That's
Yep.
also one of the reasons that Skyfall works, because you get all the characters now. We are in a Bond movie.
You were in a Bond movie. That's what. Well, my favorite thing about the movie. No offense to all the hard work that happened leading up to it, but it ends so fucking beautifully. That last like 2 minutes where we've got our new offices, and it's the lobby to M's fucking office.
God,
And then she's at the desk. It's like, oh, I never got your name. Oh, it's Eve Moneypenny. And I'm like, oh my God, we got the office. Oh, and he'll see you now. And hello, M. Hello. I'm like, oh my God.
yeah, no, it was it gave
Like, if
me,
you want to talk about
all I wanted.
Casino Royale sticks its landing, this this ends with where you want to be. You're in a Bond movie.
Yes.
And then once again, it ends with the iris instead of opening. But I'm like, man. Also, he that movie also gives you the Aston Martin.
Yep.
It gets shot to shit, but it gives you the Aston Martin.
This is true.
It gives you a slightly bigger villain than the last two we had, which is like a banker for a shady operative or an oil tycoon. But now we've got like, I've got a plan. It's a personal plan, but I've got a plan. So you're getting a lot of the bigger things that you're using.
Closer to being a Bond
Closer.
archetype,
We
closer.
eventually get there.
This is like if Jaws was intelligent, like
like in the fourth one where it follows the mom to the Bahamas because it remembers.
I meant Jaws from Bond, not Jaws from the Revenge. I meant Jaws from the Bond movies, not Jaws the Revenge. But I mean, yeah, when he goes to Hawaii and or whatever, and the shark swims down the coast because it wants
vengeance.
Yeah, it's like that one, John.
Yeah. Sometimes my brain's not so good.
Like I was like Jaws, and you're like, yeah, like the Revenge.
You mean
Not the SeaWorld one.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
But yeah, no, the villain is a physical threat in addition to being an intelligent one. He's the closest to being what a Bond villain.
Yeah, he's not he's not my favorite though. I have some notes on that. I got really excited about it being Javier. Like let's not like the pedigree of this cast goes up. You've got Ray Fiennes, you've got Javier Bardem. Like, we're not fucking around here. I got a little disappointed though when he's got Bond and he's like rubbing his thighs, and I'm like, oh, so he's gay. And I didn't go like, oh, cool, it's the 21st century representation. It felt like, how do we make the villain creepier? I don't know, let's make him gay. Let's have him rub Bond's thighs. And when they're talking about the rats eating each other, he's like, maybe we could eat each other too. And I'm like, all right, maybe I'd love to talk, because I don't really talk to Bond with a lot of people, but I'd love to talk to Bond with some gay people. I'm like, do you feel like he's like, oh yeah, it's cool, like I'd love to rub fucking Daniel Craig's thighs? Or do you, like me, kind of just roll your eyes at this? Like, because I don't know if they're trying to go for like representation, or if they're doing this juvenile, really dated thing where like, well, how do we make the villain creeper? Make him gay for Bond.
There is precedent for that in the Bond series, as you know, but
it feels icky.
And it might be, but I will point out that something that, being a hetero guy in the audience who is progressive and thinks that Bond can be whatever we want Bond to be. When his remark, instead of him being creeped out by it, he comes back with like, "You think I've never messed around with a dude before?" And to me, I liked that so much that the weird part just made, oh, he's a creepy guy, straight or homosexual, bi, whatever, either in any of those instances. But I just like that he tried to make Bond uncomfortable with that.
Mhm.
Bond goes, "Bro, you think it's my first rodeo with a dude?" And I was like,
Yeah.
thought that was great.
First of all, I'm glad you brought that up because that part of it I thought was fine and kind of cool. And
Yeah.
I presume somebody was got to bump into that. I don't. And thankfully, I've never bumped into anyone else who has bumped into it. If anything, if you're a spy for your country, like there's a lot of things,
Bond
First,
does a lot. Bond does a lot of things with a lot of people.
right. I mean, and he's employed by the government. So whether he's gay for pay or if he's like, no, actually, I do kind of like to fuck around with whatever. I don't care.
Hey,
It all
man.
works.
Yeah,
It
well,
all works.
that was so in that situation, I forget about how kind of creepy they make him, where he's like feeling up on him.
Yeah.
But I did think it was hilarious that Bond's comeback
It
is like,
didn't work. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
No, but it's not even that because yes, it's an approach, and then Bond has a retort. But he takes him out to go. They put the drink on the girl's head,
oh my
and
God, I
but
like the scene. It's
ap-
intense.
but he goes, "No, don't move anything. Don't move." And then he literally flicks his limp wrist, and I'm like, "Ah, so we're just okay, all right. What is this fucking like the early
Yeah,
'90s? Like I just thought it was such a dumb, dated
yeah,
idea. I'm not into it. I feel it feels cheap and it feels misguided, and I'm
yeah,
not here
I
for
agree.
it.
I agree.
Also because he has such a mommy complex, I feel like they're also feeding into like the idea of like gay dudes and their moms, and this sort of I mean thematically the movie is about like two sons, how like M is like a surrogate mom to Bond and how this guy's hey BJ, did you know that he's like a mirror to Bond because he was also an agent and he's hung up on M. It's like they're
Yeah, oh yeah,
he's like holding up a mirror to him. Having said that though, he does have a great presence. I almost get this is gonna sound you might I'm curious I almost get like a Caesar Romero Joker not dialed up that much.
yes,
But when you make his hair that blonde and you just give him that certain energy when he's like on the ladder and he's about to blow up the thing, I'm like, yeah, there's like a weird version where you could have been the Joker.
oh man, that would have been dope. I'm into that. I'm
Yeah.
into that.
So yeah,
Yeah,
I do like him, even though another caveat I have is this is maybe one of my most eye rolly worst examples of a movie where the villain's whole plan was to get caught.
right.
Where he knew that for years in advance that he needed to end up in the room and also bring a computer so that the virus would go in there and that he would escape and not only run through the sewers, but in case anyone followed him, he was going to put a bomb right underneath where the subway goes. Just in case when he gets caught, it happens to be the exact time that a train is passing by that he can blow it up to then get out because he knew that M was going to be on trial defending the MI6 because of this like it's way too there's like 20 coincidences that all happen. Uh
It's so the move can happen.
it's far too it's this movie and the next movie are full of things that are in my opinion silly, but
Well,
the cast is so good and
right,
Roger Deakins
right.
shoots it so well that it still feels like an entertaining time, but if you really stop and think about his plan, it's
Yeah.
absurd.
Well, it's also it's kind of the Batman curse on these two films. If you watch Batman or you watch Batman Forever, it's there are points where it pushes things a little too far stylistically, a little too this way, a little bit too that way. But whoever saw the movie and made the notes at the studio, let's push further on the parts that the audience was like, close. That's as far as we want to go with neon lights. Well, now we have to have
Oh
a
yeah.
plant snake hybrid. Well, now you've pushed it so far, and I think with Spectre, some of the things that worked, but we wouldn't want to push too much further. In Spectre, they overdo
Oh yeah.
because I think that that's what people are coming for.
um I mean, we'll get to Spectre in a moment, but I do want to say that this really is a last hurrah for Judi Dench. I think this is fucking a great performance by her
Yep.
within a Bond movie, and that's really saying something. Um, I actually like her, like, not trial, but when she's trying to explain why the double O program or the MI6, in this 21st century, like how it's relevant. Like,
Right.
it's a great speech. It's great.
It's fantastic.
I love that after that speech, then Javier Bardem shows up and all hell breaks loose, and I just think it's silly that there was a guy that shot Bond at the beginning, and then later we catch up with him and get a chip, and that chip leads to the thing with and it turns out this was all part of his plan to then get caught, to then get the fuck out of here. It's a bunch of nonsense.
Yep.
Yeah. And as a Mission Impossible fan, I do like that it's basically, oh no, the knock list got taken. Like,
yeah, that's funny. Yeah.
classic. It's the plot. It's the setup for Mission Impossible.
List is in the open.
The list is in the open. Putting people's names on YouTube, and but it's got a hell of a finale. I actually don't think the action in this is amazing. It's fine. Although I do love when he falls in the fucking Komodo dragon pit.
Yes.
And there's that big fucking goon. And it's one of the only times where Bond doesn't play it cool. He fucking like sees the Komodo dragon and he like points. He's got really big eyes. And the goon kind of ignores him. He's like, but there's a fucking. I could go back and rewatch that and just watch Daniel Craig go. So good. But dude, the Home Alone Nightmare on Elm Street booby trap.
Oh, yes.
So fucking, like, even just the little bits we have of his buddy explaining, oh, this is the room that he hid in. This is where he cried when he found out his parents died. Like, all the little nuggets, it never feels like this big overt origin story, but this idea that we know, because we already established he was an orphan, and now we established like who helped raise him, where he kind of
that's
came
where
from.
they get into trouble on the next movie
They
because
fuck it all up in the next one.
people
Yes,
like all that, and then they take it too far.
they take it way too far. But I taking the bulb and then putting it in a gunpowder bag full of screws and then screwing it into
So good.
it's really, really good stuff. Do you remember that? I forget the guy's name, the character's name, but the rumor that I heard at the time was that the role was originally intended to be for Sean Connery.
Yes.
And I go, well, that's a nice reference to what's come before. I think it's so on the nose. You're like, well, why is Sean Connery in a Bond movie not playing James Bond? I don't like it. So I'm really glad it didn't happen.
Yeah, I agree. It would have been cool, but it would have been fan service and not servicing the film. And I think that also would have hurt its place in history as, generally now, like you said, the Goldfinger of modern day.
Yeah.
I think they would lose that if Connery was in it.
And, it was the 50th anniversary of Bond. So, like, delivering a really solid Goldfinger, like, it works. And we end with M in the office and Moneypenny, like, good. Good. Next movie, not so good. Although I have a new hot take, because when I saw it, I hated it. And then I saw it a second time and I'm like, yeah, it's not great. And I watched it this third time, and something that's happened to me with certain movies. I'll give you an example. Attack of the Clones, where once this is the bad stuff in it, and that bad stuff's never going to get any better, that bad becomes my baseline. And now I can start to appreciate the things that do work. This was the most I've ever enjoyed Spectre. Because there are things that work in it.
Oh yeah, I enjoyed Spectre. My issues with Spectre became do we have to tie everything to the same, like the origin of this character is all connected together to Spectre, to Quantum, to, that was too much. I didn't mind all the criminal enterprises being connected, but I hated that Blofeld was like so connected with Bond that this was a revenge thing for someone that we didn't know from when he was a child. He was going to become a secret agent, but you became this super secret agent villain. You know what I'm saying? It just
Yeah,
seemed too tied together, and it didn't need to be.
and I think it's like that happened when Bond was 12, and I think he's supposed to be for first Bond is supposed to treat him like a little brother. So let's say this guy's like 13 or 14. Like, at what young age do you eventually? How do you know he's going to become a spy, or at what point do your
Yeah,
resources know
yeah.
that?
Like how when did you start making plans to be a supervillain to
I
thwart this guy because he's in government?
It's going to sound. I'm going to be talking so much shit for the next several minutes, and yet I still enjoy this movie.
Same, absolutely.
But I'm going to
I
talk a
walked into
lot
the
of.
theater going, I like that. Hope they chill on the Blofeld thing, but I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I got. There's. It's funny. There's so much wrong with it, and yet I still find a considerable amount of value and joy in it. But yeah, I guess leading right off the bat. So like one of the things that if you look at, if we're gonna go Bourne with this one, if we're gonna go rebooty with this one, this particular movie hits a very specific thing that like I hated, and we only had a few of them, but um Roberto Orsi and Alex Kurtzman write a lot of movies that aren't great. And one of the greater offenders was Star Trek Into Darkness, where I think what was his name? John Hamilton or something?
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
John Harrison. My name is Khan. And you're like, why are you saying it like that? It's like I get why that's a reveal for us. Why is it a reveal for Kirk? Stop. Why is this even a beat? And it reeks of, hey, you know what, audiences are, we're doing that thing right now in Hollywood. So it's not just Blofeld. It's
It's his
Oberhauser.
brother.
No, but also is he because remember they had to do is John Harrison, are you playing Khan? He goes, no, I'm playing John Harrison. And it was like, well, is Christoph Waltz playing, it's called Spectre. First of all, it's called Spectre. Of course he's fucking playing Blofeld.
Right, right.
Still,
They were trying to keep
why
it a surprise.
why
Yeah.
even be fucking coy about it? So no, I'm playing Oberhauser. He's this new villain, Oberhauser. All right, I guess. But they refer just to have the beat where it's so clumsy because it doesn't need to be a reveal. He's like, well, Oberhauser died in that avalanche.
Right.
I go by Ernst Blofeld, my mom's maiden name.
That's stupid.
Oh, can we do a
That's
rewrite
so
or another take? Because none of that worked. None of that worked. It's a bad idea. Uh,
Blofeld reveal was weak.
the Blofeld reveal was weak. The idea of it is weak, and the idea of it is stupid. Um, for a couple reasons. One is that Austin Powers, the Spy franchise spoof, already did the Blofeld character as them as brothers for laughs. And now you're gonna do the funny thing, and you're gonna do it like this is once the Spy spoof already did it before you, just don't fucking do it. Like
Yeah,
it's
I agree.
laughable.
I don't know what they were thinking.
What they were well, I could tell you kind of what they're. It's bad. It's bad, and it's bad, and which is so many Bond movies tend to be isolated. It's kind of fun when From Russia with Love and Doctor No bleed into each other. It's kind of fun when Casino Royale and Quantum of Solace bleed into each other. It's fun when like we call back to a previous movie, like visiting
Right.
the grave of his wife. But this foolish fucking idea to say, oh no, let's connect them all so far, these four movies, when there was never any intention of them being connected. Like, it's one thing when you start a franchise and you go, oh, we're going to make Iron Man. Oh, and then Captain America's Shield is going to be in Iron Man 2. Oh, and this is going to be in that. And they're still their own movies, but this little thingy where we mention Howard Stark this, Wakanda's on a map there. We can connect them. But there's no fucking intention in those first three movies to be related. So for this one to not only say they're all related, but that it's your brother who's been the mastermind of all this as vengeance. It's like trying to shoehorn continuity What? Because Marvel had continuity and people like who? Why?
Yeah,
I think it's
I
because
think they probably they
they.
saw that was popular in the
I think
last
it
one.
has to do with Marvel,
You think
right?
so? I guess it was
And
at the
and
time, yeah.
and DC maybe just the idea of like shared universes, but like just having interconnectivity. But
Yeah.
you have to. I'm not one of those people that thinks that when you write the new Star Wars trilogy, you have to map them all out. But you have to have an idea of where you're going. And those three movies were their own three movies. You're shoehorning in connectivity where there wasn't any, and that's rough. And also it's poorly executed and stretches any credibility because the idea that one forget the fact that it's his brother and I'm the orchestrator of all your pain. So all three of those bad guys is my plan. Also, M dying, Vesper dying, that was me. Although to a certain degree, if Quantum is a part of Spectre, him kind of giving the marching orders for Vesper makes sense. But here's why the problem I have with it is each one of those three villains has their own story and their own intentions. And if you're telling me that the bad guy from Quantum of Solace was really being puppeteered by Oberhauser to he still wants to get water and pretend it's oil and this is all just a scheme that he wants because he know if he's trying to hurt Bond that way, Bond defeats all three of those villains. So that doesn't make any sense. Um, but also, if each one of those villains is telling their own story, like if Silva really wants to get revenge on M and he fails and it's all just part of Blofeld's plan, that robs each one of those villains of their agency retroactively in their own story and makes them all fools. And that sucks, right? At least I think
Yeah,
so.
yeah. I mean, I know I agree. I remember seeing it just going, this is unnecessary.
Like
It's unnecessary.
think about all the passion that Silva is putting in, like how mad he is at mommy, and then find it out that like, oh, Blowfield was just kind of pulling the strings to make that happen.
Yeah, it just seemed unnecessary to me. It just seemed like why are we unnecessarily tying because everything already is tied together because they're so sequential.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying, but now adding in the brother dynamic and the vengeance for what at what age? Like it just I remember at the end of it going, wow, all of that worked for me except for the I'm coming for you and I've been coming for you. I liked it better that oh yeah, I'm the mastermind.
Yeah.
I'm the mastermind.
Bad idea, and really bad execution. And the most laughable bit is because it is cool when he blows up his compound. They leave, and then it turns out he survived, and he has to go into MI6 before it gets demolished. And I'm not normally a dickhead like this, but I had to laugh out loud when he's walking through. There's like a little spray paint that says James Bond with an arrow, and then an arrow going that way. And I'm like, oh, did he make a little fun house for James Bond? Did he really get his ass blown up? And then, and here's where I had to laugh. He passes by like this hallway of rooms, and in each room is just like an 8.5 by 11 office paper printout of Vesper, an office paper printout in black and white of Lashif, of fucking Silva.
Right.
And he tapes them on the wall. It's one thing for the Joker to do that to like Commissioner Gordon. But to have this guy after being blown up print up these little photos like, oh, this'll really get him, or this'll really get in his head. Like he already remembers this shit, but it's just so foolish to me that he has these little pieces of paper that he taped up. I just started giggling in the theater because it's so silly and it's so ineffective. And the fact that so much planning went into it and it's still just like a Xerox paper of a photo of M.
Yeah, I think yeah, Quantum definitely not Quantum, I'm sorry,
Spectre.
Spectre. There's some stuff in there, especially in the end, where I was just like, why are we doing this? Like, what was your but I'm assuming it's because those elements that there's a little bit of that in uh Skyfall, it was so popular that they're like, well, the next one has to be
We have to,
all of it.
and they were wrong.
They were wrong.
They were absolutely wrong. I mean, I don't need to beat that dead horse, but like, it just so doesn't work for me. And also, well, okay, I'm gonna still keep beating the dead horse. One of the other problems about them being brothers, aside from like the ludicrousness of it, is that they don't play it well. And I'm not going to blame it. It is a problem of the actors. I'm not going to necessarily blame them. It might be the direction of the producer's guidance. But James is at a meeting and he looks down and eventually he looks up and goes, "Oh, hello, James." And he gets a look at him and he recognizes this face. He says, "Cuckoo." And you're like, "Oh, we don't really know yet." But, he's like, "Hey, can you look up Franz Oberhauser, especially anything that happened to him after he died?" After he died? Yeah, after he died. It's just so stone-faced,
Yeah.
which is kind of fine. But what my problem is we get to the third act of the movie and they're face to face. He goes to the compound. Each movie starts to slowly become more and more of a Bond movie. Like in this one, I'll give them credit. The villain has a layer. And after saying, do you want shaken stirred? And he's like, "Do I give a damn?" at Casino Royale. To, I think it's in Skyfall, like someone gives him you see the lady shaking the drink, she hands it to him and he goes, "Hey, that's good." We finally get him saying shaken not stirred in this. So there's all these little Bondy things, that happen. We get Q out in the field. I loved in the Bond movies when they would put Q out in the field. But the idea that once he gets captured and we're gonna have a nice rest and have a little dinner, and then you're gonna meet your host, the bad guy. The way Oberhauser is going on about the meteorite, and then I'm like, I don't, even if you're playing it aloof and cocky, I don't believe that you're toying with this guy that you hate. I don't believe that you guys know each other or have a history. And as Bond's in the chair and Oberhauser's at his little computer getting ready to do stuff, and then he gets up and walks over to him and reveals his name and all that shit, I don't get any history. There's
Yeah.
nothing in their performances that is bitter or angry. There's nothing in James that's like scared or hurt or confused. They feel like fucking strangers.
It does. Yeah.
It's really badly played. It's so casual and indifferent the way Oberhauser's, and not like I would love it if he was being kind of catty, just like, now I'm going to do this. It's going to drill into you. And I could see a fake casualness. It's just like a casualness and it doesn't work.
No, and it's weird because they cast once again they cast the movie so well, and I like all of the stuff, the setup with the female lead in this. I like the
Oh,
music used to on Her Majesty's Secret Service, and um, I liked all that, but then all of the stuff with Blofeld became very weird and like 90s movie, like, oh, I killed your wife in the previous movie, and now Lethal Weapon 2 is connected to Lethal Weapon 1 for no reason. And I remember just going, why? The Joker killed Batman's parents. Why? Yeah.
yeah. I like the Batman and Joker callback. I don't know. Like as a comic book fan, yeah, I get it. Maybe it's because I saw Batman '89 in the theater and I was just happy to see Batman. But if there's I'm glad you brought up the female lead, because that's one of the things that again I like and also don't like about this movie. I'm terrible with foreign people's names. So Leah Sadu, I don't know, but it's French. Once again, big fan. Um, uh, and I love her casting because I think she's a really smart actress, and I think she's also a really smart Bond girl. I like that she has like a like elegant beauty, but isn't like overtly like wearing like sexy outfits or has like a dumb silly name. Um, had a history of playing really rich characters before this, and I loved seeing her kind of jump into like Hollywood studio mainstream. Uh, really like her as a Bond love interest. I love that she's Mr. White's daughter. I love the angle of her in this story and what drives him to protect her because of the promise he made. Everything's great, except once again, at the end of the movie, I'm told they're in love. I never saw them fall in love. Especially when she like gets right up to his face and she's like, and I'm like, you do? What? He saved you in a car chase, and you know, I love the ending. I love the idea on paper of they've got this connection, right? Because I really like the scene where they're gonna go after the bad guy and blah blah blah. And she's like, I'm not gonna go with you. He's like, what? She's like, she hates her fucking father. She hates this whole shit, all of it, this whole world, bad guys, spies, all of it. She's like, I don't want to be in this world anymore. So yeah, I'm choosing just to fucking walk away from you, even though I love you, because I don't want any part of this. So I love that he has the choice to kill fucking Blofeld. He's like, you know what? You guys arrest him. I'm throwing away my gun. I'm throwing it all away for her. I love her. I'm going to quit. The movie ends with them getting in the car and driving off. I love everything about that, except for this little part in the middle where I never saw them fall in love. Which is a shame because she's great.
No, yeah, yeah. And it's funny because I remember in the theater and I'm hearing the musical cues from On Her Majesty's Secret Service, and I'm like, oh my God, that means she's gonna be.
Did they do that? Because they definitely do that in No Time to Die. Did they do that in this?
The musical, there are musical cues at the end of Spectre from On Her Majesty's Secret Service played.
Oh, is it when they drive away in the? Okay.
And they knew what they were doing with that because we all know the significance of that movie and
Yeah.
a love interest in driving away in the car. I was like, at the end, going to be them killing her right in front of him. And then I thought that they were going to do the opening of the next one, a la.
Yeah.
It was what they were supposed to do for Diamonds Are Forever.
We'll get to that. But I do like this is the kind of interconnectivity that I do like. I like that Mr. White recurs in these movies and that she's his daughter. And I like that she's a smart, successful doctor. And she chose to walk away from her dad and away from all this. That I love that her father's a killer and she tries to not be part of that life, and she falls in love with essentially a killer who's a part of that life. There's a nice, complex relationship there. I really dig it. In fact, I really like when they first get to the hotel, L'American, and find like her father's room, and she's drunk and she's fucking busting his chops a little bit. Like I like where their relationship starts, where she doesn't necessarily want to be in the same room with him, and they warm to each other. And then I missed the 10 minutes where they fell in love, and we just skipped to the end. So no real connect. Yeah. I think that's probably my biggest note about the whole movie, right? Is like there's no connection between Bond and Blofeld. I don't get any real emotional connection between him and Elizabeth Swan. Is it? No, that Elizabeth Swan is Pirates of the Caribbean. Madeline Swan.
Madeline Swan.
Right. Yeah. No connection.
Now I do think there's something I have an opinion on this. I think Mr. White should have been the character from On Her Majesty's Secret Service. He's shady anyways. And I think that it should have been Tracy. I think they should have just made that the character.
Made the names?
Yeah. I saw no reason why make Mr. White a different character, and then if they wanted them to do the love interest thing and then make a little wink to On Her Majesty's, I think they should have just made it that character. But which in the last movie, I think lends itself to that as well.
It's weird. I'm kind of glad they didn't. Only that, like, it's funny that you can recast and make M's and money pennies and Q's, but for some reason I'm like, I don't want another Tracy. I don't know. I just kind of want to let her be that. But it's not a bad idea.
I think it would have been cool. But I mean, probably.
The more I think,
not to, because I know they had the conversation because they play the music. So
yeah,
they probably, rightfully so, didn't do that.
Yeah, there's still plenty to like. I think the opening shot is cool. I don't know if you remember it starts out in Mexico and it's going down the whole street and follows them into the hotel, up the elevator, down the hall, and out through the room and out to the window. I'm like, oh, this is cool.
Yeah, no, I love the whole opening sequence when they're in the Day of the Dead, right?
I mean, yeah, all the extras, costumes, all those it's great. If you hear my tone, I go, it's cool. And there's a little high pitch because I also have to wonder, if it's just a long take for the sake of a long take, which again, He definitely plays with in 1917, but like without becoming too much of an asshole about things. When A Touch of Evil did it, doing that in real time, the whole point is that there's a bomb in the trunk. We're creating tension, and every real second, tension builds and builds and builds. When we do it in Halloween, it's creepy to be in the point of view of a killer. It's creepy because the people in the house don't know what's wrong, and we do. This just feels like, hey, look what I can do.
Right.
Because there's no real context to why it's a long take.
It's
Nothing.
just something that they want to show you they can do.
It's just something that they could do. But I think I know a lot of people don't really care for Spectre. I think the action in Spectre is actually superior to the action in Skyfall. The helicopter fight over Mexico,
No, for sure.
fucking great. The chase where they've taken Madeline and he takes a fucking plane and chases the car and the wings break off, and
Fantastic.
it's really, really good stuff. The fight with Batista on the train,
Oh my God. Yeah, yeah. Everything
and the fact that she gets her licks in a little bit, and granted he smacks her down, but in the train car and then in the second car later, so like great action in this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Some of my favorite. Although a little bit of a waste for Dave Batista.
I thought it was cool. Everything that he was in, I thought was cool.
I've warmed to it. The first time I saw it, I was like, "Oh, Batista's in this," and he was really fascinating because every once in a while we have like a wrestler turned actor. He's one of the first wrestler turned actors that had this really good pedigree of films for a while there, like Blade Runner 2049. He's in a fucking Bond movie, like Guardians. Like this is a lot better than like Suburban Commando and No Holds
Oh
Barred.
yeah, yeah.
He's doing some really,
Hard, yeah.
yeah. Uh, but then I just remember going like, oh, he's in like 3 scenes. He has no lines. He gets one word. I was really disappointed. This is the first time I saw it where I went, okay, I get it. Like we're having fun, and he doesn't say anything. Fuck it. He's still a fucking beast of a presence.
Fantastic. He's very imposing.
I love the setup of like, is there anyone who could state why they should take this job over this guy? And he just walks up, gouges his eyes out, kills him, but then just doesn't say anything and just sits in his chair, and everyone just goes, okay. Like, is anyone gonna try to argue with this gorilla of a man? So I mean, bits of it. I actually do think there's a little bit of humor in it that I really quite like. You know, he tries to order a drink at the juice bar, and they're like, "Sorry, sir, we don't serve alcohol." I love when the building's falling down at the beginning. He slides down, he lands on a couch, and just kind of,
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
fuck, I landed on a couch. All right, like things about it work. I like the action. I think I'm not the biggest fan of the Skyfall song, but I think the score is great. And what's weird is I don't really like the Skyfall song, but it gets stuck in my head easily. So there's definitely something to it.
Skyfall, we're on Spectre.
Oh shit, you're right. But I meant to say that about Skyfall. Yeah, I do not like the Spectre song.
Which one's the Spectre one? Oh yeah, I don't like it at all. I don't
The
like him. I don't like
writings
the
on the
song.
wall.
No,
Uh,
don't like the song, don't like him. Don't like anything about it.
yeah, I will say this. Not a bad melody. I just don't like it as a Bond song. I just, for a Bond film, I don't think it's the right fit.
Yeah, no, I think that's that one's a loss.
Yeah, but you know, I, I like the action. I love the casting of Madeline Swan.
Yep.
I really like the way it ends.
Yeah, I love the ending. The ending is it's weird because the movie I feel like the movie is really strong first and second act, and the third act it gets real like why are we doing this?
I'm
And
glad
the
you said
very
that.
ending it ends on a high note again to where it kind of makes you go, okay, well overall that was really great except for this really weird handling of the
Yeah,
origin of uh of Bond and
you really struck on something because Act One, Act Two, pretty much the first 2/3 of the movie are pretty good until you get to the compound and when it blows up, and you're like, this is a pretty decent Bond movie. I mean, yeah, you reveal that he's his brother and everything. It's kind of stupid, but like, it's fine. But everything after that compound blows up, it gets real dumb real fast.
it gets really weird and they're trying to set up the eye thing on
Yeah.
Blofeld. It's a little too much. It's too much.
And I forgot to mention, but Andrew Scott, who plays C, love Andrew Scott. Fucking fantastic actor. I almost kind of wish we didn't even do Blofeld and let the villain be like a government operative who's really shady, who works for like a secret organization, but like let him be the villain. Because anytime he's on screen, I'm like, oh, I kind of, oh, like, or just a different movie, like he'd be a great Bond villain.
Yeah.
If you've ever seen him in Sherlock, fucking, he's one of my favorite actors right now. And I wish we got more of him, but I think I like that there's almost like the A villain and a B villain. And M is also on like the B story, butting heads with C.
Yeah.
And then the bummer is that like, oh, it turns out it's all one big thing, and that Spectre is behind this whole initiative, and that he's part of Spectre. And I go, okay, so it's all one thing. Whatever, whatever. I love his death though. I love that it's just him and M for a moment, and then just like a big accidental fall. That look on his face before he dies, it's so good. So good. Anyway, Spectre.
Yeah, I think Spectre, yeah, it's one of those things where it's cast really well. Some things were handled really well, and then there's just this one piece that they just really completely went the wrong way and it didn't work out.
Really. Also,
But then, oh yeah, go ahead.
do you find it weird that like he puts him in this torture? And again, here's another Bond thing. Like we get him in a torture machine, but we don't go super big and silly with it. It's not laser beams and it's just like here's the thing that's holding him. But it's like here's this drill and it's going to do this, and he's like blah, and then it's like I'm going to drill you here. You're going to forget how to play piano or something. And then he's like, in this next one, we're going to drill here, and you're going to forget who she is. You're going to forget. You remember he's going to be gone. And then they do it. And then he remembers her. He gets up, he escapes, and he's fine. I'm like, what was the point of all the drills if the drills never did anything that they were supposed to do?
I agree. A
I,
lot
I
of
have
missed opportunities with that one.
a lot of missed opportunities. However, I feel like you and I are going to disagree on this. I feel like No Time to Die steers it in the right direction towards the end.
Um,
I quite like No Time to Die.
uh, I have so much to say about No Time to Die.
I have notes, but I do enjoy it. What do
I
you got?
I think No Time to Die is so fantastic that I don't want any more James Bond movies. I thought No Time to Die was so well executed. Um, they gave us a villain who finally was without being forced, a true Bond villain with the cat on his lap, but not funny, not silly, frightening, frightening villain who could press a button and destroy a country just because he could. And you believe it. He's frightening. Bond, everything with Madeline works for me. The beginning's a little slow, but once it gets going, it's in. I think the supporting cast around Bond is so good and the ending is so beautiful that I'm okay with watching more movies of those characters continuing on in 00 activities. The new 007, I thought she was fucking great. Um, I like No Time to Die so much that I think it was a great send off for the Bond character, and I will go see whatever they do next with Bond. I don't see any personal need for any more Bond movies.
Wow. Um, okay.
I think I think that No Time to Die capped the Bond character in such a great way and gave us so many things that we thought were silly. It literally did a Austin Powers level villain, but made it dead serious. It's not funny. This guy will wipe out your entire lineage today.
Yeah.
When Bond is in the room and everyone's dying around him, when Blofeld dies, when all of that all lands with me. The one thing I do think that we're going to disagree on is I think the weakest part of the movie is the female agent that shows up from Blade Runner. It's really cute and everybody's a crush on, and she takes the drink. All of that completely could be omitted from the movie and makes no difference to it. However, on the flip side of that, I love the new 007, and I love that her and Bond have to work together, and they work so well together. But loathe each other, but also respect each other.
Eventually come together. Yeah.
I think I just like she knows what time it is. What it's time to die. And I was just I all of that. The new M, Moneypenny, Q, the new 007. Those characters, I would love to see a US Marshal style sequel with them. And I would be
Hopefully better than U.S. Marshals.
but US Marshals, I mean, it's not great, but it's
Yeah.
not
But
it's
I get, yeah.
underrated. But I would love to see those characters continue on. And I would like to see maybe 3 movies of that before you give me another Bond. Because I think the movie is so well done that to rush into another Bond with a different actor with a different scenario.
Well,
Um,
I think that's where it's taken a few more years. We're getting a little distance from it.
right,
I agree with you in that I think it's a good cap, but what I like is that it's a good cap to me to Craig. So I do want you to continue because we capped in a different. That's one of the things I kind of love about this movie was that every Bond, even like every Bond era, right? It's just a series of movies that the actors in. Not only was it different in that Daniel Craig got to start with an actual like origin, with like starting point. And that could have just been it. We just make some Bond movies and then he's done. But the fact that this one actually gives us an ending for the first time gave us a block of movies that are now a saga and not just the Brosnan movies, the Connery movies. It's an actual point A to point B, the end, curtains. And we've never had that. And I hope going forward, like the next Bond movie isn't another like reboot origin story, but just new Bond, new M, new Moneypenny. He's already Bond. Let's go. Just like all the other 20 Bond movies. These are the 5 that start here and end here and have a beginning and have an end. And let that just be that for this. And as much as I hated that Spectre tried to take the first 3 movies and turn them into something they're not, this manages to take the 4 movies that came before it and turn the saga into something. And I went, oh, so you did what Spectre failed to do. Because it does. This builds on. I love that when you write the thing and then light it on fire, and hers is the man in the mask. But I was expecting the note to say Vesper, and instead he takes to your grave and it says forgive me. And I'm like, fuck. It plays so well into the Vesper of it all. This is a better job to me of dealing with Spectre as an organization and digging up its past ties. Madeline said in Spectre, the movie, the story about when she was a kid and someone came and tried to kill her and that there was a gun under the sink. So I like that we have some connectivity. This was the better version of Mr. White being connected. This is how you do it, and to do it emotionally. Because here's one of the other things. I have a lot of nice things to say about this. I love when movies can show the passage of time and fill us in. So I never saw them fall in love in Spectre. I believe they're in love in this movie.
Correct. Yeah.
When we open the movie and they're driving together and going to the city, I'm like, oh, you guys, you're acting, you're the writing, we're there, you're doing it.
The part honestly where you see that there is what their feelings about each other are to me is when he thinks that she's betrayed him and they're in the car and they're shooting up the car around him. That is so intense for both of them. He's so lover scorned and she's so desperate to go, yo, I didn't do anything wrong. It's so intense and so palpable.
He's got an internal fight and you can see it.
Oh yeah.
Whether to believe her or not. That's okay, because you're talking about the opening. That scene, maybe my favorite scene in the whole movie. Once the betray, gets back to the hotel room, grabs her purse, gets her in the car. I need to tell you something. Upon second viewing, I'm pregnant. But he's like, I bet you fucking do. When they're driving around, blah, blah, blah.
So good.
But when they stop and they just start going and shooting at the windows, and it just keeps going at her fucking window over and over, and she's begging him, and he's fighting everything, and we just keep and then fuck it, spins, brings out the little fucking Gatling guns. Like it. I love that Spectre ends with with us getting the Aston Martin back so that we have it for this one. We already know that Q was working on it and adding all the shit to it.
Yep.
Spectre already also gave us the ejector seat, so we've reached a point now in the franchise where we can have machine guns come out of the front
Yes. Oh
and
yeah.
have smoke. Another thing I love about this movie is that one of the little, it's not a bad thing, but Skyfall and Spectre, by having Sam Mendes direct them and shoot the ever loving shit out of them and cast them so well, is it feels like they were trying to make Bond into like pedigree cinema, you know?
Right.
And that's fine, but I don't need Bond to be that elevated. And I like that this one kind of went back to like, no, it's still a Bond movie. The villain's got a really big fucking layer at the end. He's gonna destroy the world. The car's got fucking machine guns in it. He drives a motorcycle up the side of a wall. Like it's a Bond movie
It's tattooed.
without pretending to be prestige picture.
Well, it's funny, and it ends up being much more prestigious by just doing it. Like
By beat, yeah.
yeah, it's such a good film. It's so well done. I was blown away by it when I watched it. My first viewing of it, I was blown away. My boss and I both at my day job, we were talking about it endlessly. He and I both kept rewatching it, and talking about it. The music, the tonally, the performance, the story, the romance, the ending.
Finding out that Bond has a kid, some movies that may not work, it really worked in this.
It really worked in this. I thought it was fantastic.
Um, I, I get, I get like it's so effective. It's so fucking good. When after the car chase in the beginning, when he decides ultimately, like, I don't trust you, but I don't trust you not enough to get fucked and kill you or let these guys kill you. I love the like basically this is like putting you on the train. That's fucking it. Like we're
Yeah, we're
fucking done. And then the doors close and he stands there, the train moves and she's running after him. Like, I got you guys had about 10 minutes to make me believe that you're in love, and you did it so much that I'm heartbroken as we go into one of my favorite of the modern Bond songs. I think Billie Eilish's No Time to Die is pretty fucking great, especially lyrically.
Lyrically, I think it's
The
fantastic.
way it's, yeah, I like
Sorry,
the melody quite a bit.
it's all right.
I'm also a Billie Eilish fan. Especially when there's this really cool documentary I think called The Sound of 007. Really fucking worth your time. But
Yeah,
they
seen
go
that.
into like how she could have belted it more traditionally, but like because I think she's really good at keeping things here. It's like a strength. Um, and I like her approach to it. But yeah, the thing that I love about that song is literally the words and the state of mind. I know, especially because it works for each character. I know it's supposed to be her, but to me, if you listen to it from his point of view, all the
Mhm.
lyrics apply to him as well. They basically both fucked up and trusting the other person. And
Yep.
then the tragedy is you didn't fuck up at all. Um, so fuck it. Like there's that opening emotion, that him saying goodbye to her. The only one thing that pisses me off about this, I have a few tiny notes. This isn't even the movie, okay? This is the trailer. The idea that we're supposed to have, they're driving on the way to the thing. Why are you driving so fast? When you get there, he's like, no, we've got all the time in the world. The emotional response we're supposed to have is, oh fuck, you just said we have all the time in the world. I've seen other Bond movies. I've seen On Her Majesty's Secret Service. I know what that means. Shit. So when they're in the car and they're like, we're supposed to be scared for her because we don't know if she's going to make it past this opening scene of the movie. That's what's supposed to happen. And I think for many people, that did happen. But one of the trailers shows a shot of him standing at one end of the hall, seeing her at the other end of the hall. And I'm like, oh, that scene hasn't happened yet. So she's going to live.
Right.
Because I know she's in the movie later.
Right.
And I'm sitting in the theater going, this would be effective because it is very well done. But unfortunately, even though the trailer is like, well, it's just a shot of two people in a hallway, I'm like, no. All tension that should be in the scene removed. It's really disappointed by that. Sometimes trailers, without even being spoilery,
Trailers always screw it up. Yeah.
trailers ruin shit all the time. So that really bummed me out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I I think you like the villain more than I do.
I quite like the villain, but I like it because it's in its um just truest form of we're gonna do the super villain that's ridiculous, but make him
Yeah,
and scary. I thought they did a pretty good job of that.
His cadence is scary, and for some reason, the way he dresses, yeah, like he's got a weird energy to him. Once again, I'm really over the he's a mirror of Bond. Well, you love Madeline, I love Madeline. You hate Blofeld, I hate Blofeld. Aren't we the same person? They even have a monologue where he's like, "Aren't we the same person?" I go, "Yeah, I got it." Um, Having said that, though, I also bump into like I love the idea that Blofeld and Spectre are bad guys, right? And this bad guy hates those bad guys and is killing them all. I'm like, oh, that's fucking great. He's using this weapon against them. I love the scene where he kills all of Spectre except for Blofeld.
So good.
I don't really like the relationship between Bond and Blofeld in Spectre the movie. I love their scene in this. Like it
Yeah.
gets the love story right. It gets their relationship like it fixes a lot of things. So him and Blofeld have a great scene before Blofeld dies. Really, really dig it. I love that Bond's even being kind of honest and just playing straight with them. Like, just tell me the thing, and uh, what I bump into is that I understand that that's his motive, and then, and also, I'm just gonna kill everyone in the world. Like, oh no, I understood when it was about Blofeld and Spectre and what he did to your dad and your family and Mr. White and what they took from you. But once that's avenged, I have a hard time being like, and
Yeah.
I'm also just gonna kill people. But I will also, because this is how my brain works, I also understand that once you have a taste for that power and once you've eliminated that power and you have like that's tempting, and there is
Yeah.
something to be said about becoming the monster that you're trying to defeat. So uh, I have a tug of war of it in my mind, but Rami Malek is great.
Yeah, he is. He's fantastic.
I love when he visits Madeline Swan and presents her the mask and is like, I saved your life, so like I pretty much own your life, but in a weird way, like I love you, and like he's great. He's great. So much is great. You're right. The new 007 is great. I thought it was silly at the time when, because this is probably one of the first movies, Bond movies that was made in the specific age of the internet where loud, shitty, racist people were being loud and shitty and racist on the internet. And there was all
Absolutely.
that like, oh, there's a rumor that not only is there a black girl spy in this, but that she's 007. And I hate it because black people or because women. And then it's like, well, even if that's true, just go see the movie. And then you're sort of right. That does happen in the movie, but there's a context. It's not, remember, there was rumors that like she was going to become like James
Yeah.
Bond. Like this is his last movie. She's going to take over. It's like, no, you fucking morons. Just go watch the movie.
See, I would have liked to have seen a movie where she is a 007. She's 007 and the rest of the cast is. She
Yeah.
not do a Bond movie with her.
And her name's not James Bond. It's fine.
Yeah, and but you do a team movie where everybody is equally important. I think that'd be fantastic.
Yeah. No, but ultimately she's great. Once again, I love Q. I love that he's cooking dinner for a dude. And I'm like, that's great.
Oh yeah, that was cool. Yeah.
It's cute. It's a throw, it's a nice little throwaway. Doesn't feel too ham-fisted. Um, and also the 5-year gap and him coming back, all that pretty much works. There's a weird thing with this series that I bumped into. And it's funny because, okay, you do the Quantum of Solace, you do the first 2 movies, right? Third one, he gets shot. He's gone for a while. They think he's dead.
Right.
He comes back. And there's so much dialogue about whether you're ready to come back. Are you fit? Thematically, also within a story where they're like, is this program viable in the 21st century? Is James Bond a relic, both as a concept, but also you're injured and you're older and whether you can be back? That's what the
Right.
third movie's about.
Right. Now we just wipe that away.
Skyfall feels like it could have been the end. And then they made a 4th one. And what is the 4th one about? There's a new government guy talking about how this 00 program is done. What we need to do is have more spy software and satellites. So you've done 2 movies in a row where Bond is a relic. I'm glad that we still got this 5th movie, but like thematically, the 3rd one's like your ending point almost, But I like that the 5th one's like, well, we already addressed it twice and we shouldn't have, so we won't this time. I just think it's funny that like they kept going after the thematic endpoint.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and this one,
And in this
one he's retired and just jumps.
He's even fucking older. I love though. I paused it. it's like an hour and 5 minutes until he like comes back to MI6 and becomes an agent again. He's just a free dude hanging out. Um,
In
dude,
Jamaica.
Felix in this movie. That's the other thing. So they give me a better scene with Blofeld that has a relationship. They give me a relationship with Swan where I believe they're in love. I believe these dudes have been friends off and on for the last several years of the whole history.
Man, and then
I
what a great scene. Oh
Felix
God,
smiles. He's having fun. He's being playful and joking with them.
it's
Each
great.
version of Felix is great, but I love this version of Felix and James so much so that it hurt when they killed him.
Oh yeah.
Fucking it hurt.
But yeah, I'm glad that they were brave enough to do that because the Felix Slider character dies in the books.
Mm-hmm.
And even in, Live and Let Die, they didn't have the gall, they didn't have the balls to do it. And even in License to Kill, they show at the end that he survived and he's not supposed to have survived the shark attack. So
Yeah,
in
yeah,
this,
yeah.
they had the chutzpah to actually just do it, like in the books.
Yeah.
And it was
Yeah.
well done, and it hurt.
Yeah. I was thinking, I'm like, oh, there's no way of him coming back from this. Like that's it. Yeah, that's for real. Um, so I love Felix in this. I love so many this also, I mean, I complimented Spectre for its great action scenes, but I think this one's got some real standouts. I love the fight in the woods, like the kind of
Yep.
foggy woods
Oh wow.
and setting
Yeah.
up the thing and the fucking motorcycles and yeah, but for my money, I get opening scene, motorcycle, car, spinning, machine guns, awesome. Um, I feel like there is something. Oh, this is where something you and I are going to disagree on. The music choices. I have a real problem with them playing "We Have All the Time in the World" at the end. I also have a problem with them using it a little bit earlier in the movie, and I have a problem with them using the theme to Honor Majesty's Secret Service when he's talking to M along the river. Because maybe it's because I love Honor Majesty's Secret Service so much, but my response isn't, "Oh, you're playing stuff from a movie I like." My response is, "Those belong to that movie. Get your own fucking music." We Have All the Time in the World belongs to Honor Majesty's Secret Service. It belongs to Tracy and James. I didn't like it. I don't want to say I got upset, but I got like a little upset. I didn't find it.
Yeah.
I
I thought
didn't
I
find it
was
fun nostalgia bait. I just got upset.
Oh, I thought it was foreshadowing. I that's when I about had figured out they were going to kill James. So to play all the time in the world, I thought was foreshadowing to the fans that know. But I can see what you're saying, but I it didn't bother me,
Yeah,
and it
because
felt like it was foreshadowing. And
they use it as score in the beginning when they're driving. So I thought it was supposed to be foreshadowing her. And then
right,
they play the song at the very, very end when she's driving with her daughter.
right. Well, yeah, that wasn't foreshadowing. You're right.
Yeah.
But I thought that was a nod to that movie. Kind of this is the reverse. You have
Mhm.
and it gets flipped.
Like I
So
respect that the people behind this movie like that movie so much. Like, cool. But yeah, I get really I didn't realize how possessive I was until I saw this. And I'm like, no, let that movie have that stuff. You make your own stuff.
yeah.
Because otherwise, the score in this is fucking great. I've
Hmm.
always been a fan of David Arnold doing his David Arnold thing, but bringing on Hans Zimmer, which
Yeah, yeah.
I like Hans Zimmer a lot, but I don't go to the Church of Hans Zimmer where the people really fucking suck his cock. I'm not
Right,
one of those
right.
people, but he's doing some really,
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. And this
especially,
came out the same time around Dune too, so it was like
yeah,
the soundtracks just incredible.
incredible. Some of my favorite Bond scoring, really. So,
I would agree.
yeah, I mean, I don't really have just pretty much everything you said you loved about it. Like, I'm like, I agree. Even like, fuck, you know what kills me when he puts her on the train, and then like, I forget the exact line, but like, this is the last time I'm ever going to see you, and she clutches her stomach for a second, and maybe like on first viewing, you're like, oh well, when you're in love, poetically, you're supposed to feel it, not in your heart, but a little bit lower. But also now we realize that she's clutching
Mhm.
like her unborn daughter. The tiniest little choices in this are really effective
I agree.
in that movie. Them reuniting in the house and him confessing how like I've loved you this whole time and just the way they play that and I credit a lot of that to there's a lot of scenes that have just like one little line that's funny. And I know they brought on, I forgot her name, the lady from Fleabag. I'm terrible. She
Oh
was,
yeah, when the writer, right?
yeah, she did a final pass on the script because
Yeah.
Daniel Craig was like, this needs some levity. And
Well, it's funny because with that, some a lot of people were like, making comments, especially on this movie in general. People were like, and I remember hearing about them people disliking that they were bringing that screenwriter on, and I thought it was fantastic and clearly showed that the movie needed it, and it was right because I thought the
and
tone, especially in the third act, was so difficult, and they really handled it. I thought really well.
yeah, sometimes it's just like you could tell that here's the original scene, and then there's these two lines that make you chuckle. I'm like, that's probably all she added, and that's all we really needed so that it wasn't
Yeah,
so
yeah,
fucking dour. Especially after Spectre, which, you know, sometimes plays things so fucking grim.
yes, oh yeah,
And I think Daniel Craig as a producer knew that. Like, I probably should have mentioned this in Spectre, but like they made this big deal about Monica Bellucci, the oldest Bond girl in the movie.
right.
First
Oh,
of all, Monica Bellucci to me is one of the all-time greats.
yeah,
Um,
I'm a fan. Yeah, for sure.
just all-time beauties. But to have her scene be like, well, I'm just grieving my husband, and now this guy's breaking into my apartment and pinning me up against the wall and like forcing himself on me, and like I'm giving up information. Like it's gonna sound, maybe I'm just losing my touch. It felt gross.
Yeah, yeah,
So to be like, hey, can we get a little? Can we? We're not gonna make a comedy, but can we swing the pendulum a little bit away from that? Just a
yeah,
little bit,
absolutely.
please. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, the
And then
Monica Bellucci thing that was completely mishandled. Like hyping her up like that, and then she just is just that.
yeah, and like
It
one or
was
two
so
scenes is nothing.
stupid.
Um, also, and the big elephant in the room for a lot of people, but you fuck with the ending. You like Bond dying?
Oh, I loved it. I thought it was incredible.
Yeah. Uh, I was shocked.
I
I
was too. Yeah.
I remember because this was the first, not to get too like, you know, weepy or anything, but this is the first Bond movie I saw in a theater without my dad, who I saw the
Right.
last four Bond movies with in theaters. And I remember thinking, oh yeah, he wouldn't have liked that. It's like, I think he's from a generation where like this is what a Bond movie is. Bond movie does this, and this, and that's like, you know, one step too far from being different. But but again, I still think if you can, for the first time ever, start a Bond movie with like his beginning, then why can't you end a Bond movie with like his ending?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
There, you know, like George Lucas, like there's a poetry to it. It rhymes, you know. Uh,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yeah,
no,
no, I loved the ending. I once again, I don't I like it because I think that that movie is a perfect send off to those films. It's a thesis statement on the character. He's the opposite from what he was in the first one. Um, I think that I think it's one of the best Bond movies easily, and I think it's a great way to end it. And like I said, I was so moved by it that I don't see I don't see the need for more. I'll go see him, and I'll
mhm.
watch it or I won't. But I thought I was like I think I'm good on this. Like it's not like the Batman movies where it's like you watch Dark Knight Rises and you go, damn, it's so good and it's a great ending and but there's so much more stuff that should have happened. But we got 5 films. We've already seen 20 before these. This was a great, compact, greatest hits album of a modern Bond, and
Oh
the
yeah.
ending I thought capped it off and was the period at the end of the sentence. I thought it was beautiful.
Yeah, I'm with you. And it really, if you like certain Bond tropes, I think this one more than any of them, like gave you a lot of them.
And it
It
was
even gave
silly.
you a little plane that turned into a boat and goes
Yeah,
under,
and it wasn't
like
silly. It wasn't silly. It didn't feel
none of
silly
it's
at the
silly.
point.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Even the closest, the secondary villain, the scientist who invented the thing, he's a
time to
little,
die. Yeah.
he's a little I am Boris.
Oh yeah.
Um, and even that, you know, works.
Yeah, and
And he
I did like that new 007. I thought she was badass.
and that motherfucker's a prick where he's like looking at her, he's like, hey, you know, I could annihilate your entire race, and you're like, push this fucking guy off the
Yeah,
catwalk
I
now,
love when she
please.
goes, "What time is it? Time to die." Bam! I was like, "Yeah, man." I thought that movie was dope. The Bond fight where Bond is just funny, just breaks his arm. Like it was
Yeah.
it was so right? And also paid homage to all of the old Bond films and the old Bond villains and the old Bond situations, but in a modern day, scary. No Time to Die, I thought was
Yeah.
fantastic.
I love that you mentioned the arm breaks fight, because in a fight, James Bond clearly is going to destroy this dude. But the fact that he takes the poison, smashes on his head, levels everything out. But he's pissed because it broke in his hand. So now neither of us can. That whole speech about like you and me and Madeline, blah 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 blah. I'm listening to it going, if I were in that moment and I know what you just did to me, I'll just shoot you in the fucking face. Like, we're done. So
Yeah,
the fact that he does his whole monologue and Bond just kind of stands up and just shoots him 3 times and walks away. I'm like,
I loved it.
that's it.
Yeah, I'm not gonna play with you. We're already there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was fantastic. I was blown away. I was blown away by No Time to Die. I was blown away by it.
Yeah.
That was fantastic.
Really, really solid. So maybe not that hot of a take after all, because I was like, well, I really like it. I don't know if PJ likes it. I don't know. Turns out
Oh, I loved
I think
it.
you like it more than I do.
I thought it was incredible. I was blown away by it,
Yeah.
which
Um,
makes me happy because you don't always get that. You know, you don't always get a solid ending, and you kind of have to accept what you accept. And I thought that they just knocked it out of the park.
yeah. Especially with it's a bold swing to kill him off, but within this framework,
Yeah, I mean they're
the people.
swinging in that movie. They are swinging, and it all lands.
And I'm not saying like I feel bad for you if you don't dig on it, but like I feel like you have to be. I think you're too locked into the idea that, well, the movie and then the next movie, and the next movie. Like, no, no, no. It started with Casino Royale. So it can end here. Like, let this, let it be. I think it's fine that he dies.
Yeah, I loved it.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
and
I wish I was more controversial than that, but I thought it was fantastic.
on the whole, though, I think he had a pretty good run.
I
If
think I think he had the best run. I mean, not that I don't think that his I I I, I don't want to get controversial and say things I may regret, but I think that my favorite Bond, I don't think he's not my favorite Bond. I don't think I don't know if he's the best Bond, but I can say that of his movies, none of them suck, and he has five of them.
Yeah, I would have disagreed with you a few years ago with Spectre, but like I've really there's things I don't like, but they don't weigh the movie down enough for me to be pissed off at it.
Right, right.
So yeah, like no, it's a really solid run. I
There
wouldn't
are way
say
worse Bond movies. There are Bond movies that are almost unwatchable.
way worse.
Yeah, and he doesn't have one that I would go, oh, I didn't like that one. I go, oh no, it's not as good as this one, but I still liked it, and it had its
Yeah.
issues, but I still liked it. And then the fact that they landed the ending, like the first, the third, and the fifth one are without issue. I mean, there's issue, but main wise, and these two, this one's kind of not as exciting as everybody wanted or as happy, and this one has kind of a weird third act. Those are the notes as a
Yeah.
series. I think that it's unparalleled.
Yeah. And it's one of the only series of or runs of Bond films that one, except for maybe Connery, where like it starts as this and slowly gives you more and more and more of what you want,
Yep.
while still maintaining we've talked about how the pendulums will swing between like, silly and pretty much just starts grounded and kind of just stays grounded for like 5 fucking movies. I'm not saying I want the next Bond to be a little sillier, but like if they went with a little more levity, I like that Daniel Craig got to play that and he played it so well. Let that be his sort of. Even
Yeah.
Pierce Brosnan, Roger Moore, and Connery all got their sort of silly, or at least but he really did just sort of fucking just almost every movie he's got a fight within himself. There's a lot of internal, which is great that this version also we give him a little bit of backstory, we give him a little more to chew on, we give him always something to fight with within himself and with an external obstacle and thematic, and not just
Absolutely.
a guy who's going to blow up the world and I need to stop him. So I like that this run gives him I hate to say more depth, but a lot richer material to chew on than some
I
others.
agree. Absolutely. I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's
Yeah.
fantastic. And this is easily the best Bond run, I think, out of everybody, even over Sean Connery. Because
Yeah.
he has movies that I don't care for. All the Craig ones I enjoy.
Fucking A.
Fucking A.
Yeah. I'll let you go, but I know that we've talked about this in the past. Maybe someday in the future, we will follow up with the idea of you and me ranking all of them.
I still would love to do that. I binged all of them for that reason, and I will need to redo it. But I would love to fight our way into a Final Four style into what the best Bond films are.
Yeah, fucking I.
I
We should do
agree. I am in.
right on. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me. Fantastic.
Yeah.
And yeah, man, I love James Bond, and I'm glad that we get to talk about these movies.
Yeah, and I just know that the older we get, the busier and we get, the more adulting time takes away from us. And I always value anytime someone comes on this show and gives me their time. So especially to talk about bullshit like this. I really appreciate it, and thanks.
Well, I love that we get to do this still in our 40s. We've been doing it since we were in our 20s. And so this is awesome. I enjoy doing it. So I'm all about it. Thank you for setting it up.
My pleasure. Until next time.